On this episode of the DTVC podcast, we've got Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews on. We'll be looking at Death by Temptation, the Troma classic starring Samuel L. Jackson and Kadeem Hardison. So stay tuned for that. Also, the first half of the conversation, we talk about sort of the anticipation for the new Captain America: Brave New World film. So at the time, the movie wasn't out yet. When we recorded it, the movie wasn't out yet. So we were kind of talking about what our anticipation was for that film and what it's going to look like next year. I still haven't seen it yet. I don't know if I'll be able to see it in the theater just because of the timing of it. But Freddie will. Freddie will have seen it. So maybe we can find out from him next time we have him on what he thought of it. But to keep that in mind, the first half of the conversation is more about that movie and sort of anticipation for 2025 and what that's going to look like for Marvel films. And then we get into Death by Temptation in the second half there. So check that out. Next week, we've got Sean Malloy from I Must Break This podcast. He's back on to talk more Van Damme. This time we're going to look at Kill 'Em All and Kill 'Em All 2. So Kill 'Em All 2 was recently released on Netflix. It went straight to Netflix. So we thought it'd be interesting that a 2017 Van Damme DTV flick that didn't really seem like it needed a sequel got a sequel 7 years later. So that'll be next week. And then in 2 weeks, it'll be our 200th episode. So I don't have anything recorded for that yet. My plan is to record with my friends. This weekend, we're planning to do it, looking at doing the movie Bad Taste. So that would be a perfect one for my 200th episode. We'll see if that ends up happening, or if we end up having to reschedule, then it might be somebody else that we do for that. But that's the plan. So keep an eye out for that in 2 weeks. Can you believe it? We're going to make 200 episodes. I didn't think I would even get to 100, to be quite frank. And the funny thing is, 100 and 150 kind of just came without me realizing it. So 100, I think, was the Frank Zagarino top 5 that I did with the guys from Comeuppance. And it was like, as I was posting, I was like, oh, wait, this is the 100th post. And then 150, that was with Rich Haas from DTV Digest, where we did Rage and Recoil. It's a big, massive episode. I think we almost went 4 hours. We just were talking about those two movies. But I think if any movies would be good, right, for $1.50, that was it. So yeah, so this is kind of the first time I really even recognized ahead of time that it's a milestone episode. So yeah, so keep an eye out for that. That'll be in 2 weeks' time. Then DTVC Extra. I know I've talked about that Nicolas Cage 90s actioners. So actually this past weekend, I had a little free time and I got a little bit of a Marvel kick, and I was trying to catch myself back up because if you remember, I did MCU Phase 1 and 2 on the DTVC Extra, and then I had started Phase 3, and I'd gotten as far as Black Panther, which I'd already seen before. I think that was part of it, was I'd seen it before, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to watch it again. I did end up watching it again over the weekend, did Infinity War, Ant-Man and Wasp, which I hadn't seen before, and then I'm about an hour in on Endgame, and then of course after that I just have the Spider-Man movie to do. So what I'm thinking about doing is, it wouldn't be like 10 episodes or whatever it would be, right, to cover, give each movie its own segment of a podcast. But rather, I think what I might do is one episode that just covers Marvel Phase 3, and like the first half of it will be like the first maybe 6 movies. The second half will be, the 5, kind of starting with Infinity War. That's kind of what the plan is. So we'll see. Again, we'll see, how long it takes me to, if I can get those movies finished soon. So keep an eye out for that. And again, I don't know if I'll post social for that. It might be one of those deals again with the DTVC Extra that it's only going to be, you'll just catch it if you're subscribed to it. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Yeah, and then in terms of the site, we are hitting our 1,300 post here with Diamond Cartel. So that one should be posted around the same time that this episode goes live. So keep an eye out for that as well. It's going to get Don the Dragon Wilson into the 40 Club. So big deal there. It maybe wasn't the best movie to pick for him because he's completely dubbed in that movie, but it is a bonkers film. It's kind of like White Fire, if you've ever seen White Fire. It's as bonkers. It was made in Kazakhstan. It's got Don the Dragon Wilson. It's got Amarda Sante, if I can say his name, Olivier Gruner, another Hall of Famer, Bolo Young, also Peter O'Toole, who is also dubbed at the very end. Sounds like a guy who had a stroke, who's dubbing him. So very, very kind of a trip. It is a bonkers film, so I'm excited to review that one. Ty and Brett from Comeuppance, they've been trying to get me to review that one for a while, so look out for that. And then we're finishing off the month of February this weekend with, I think it's called like Deadly Rhapsody or some. It's listed as Rhapsody sometimes, Deadly Rhapsody other times, but it's got Fred Williamson and Ice-T in it, so I'm kind of excited to review that one. So keep an eye out for that one coming up this weekend. Yeah, I think that's kind of everything here. Because I haven't guessed it on any other pods recently, which is, we'll see. I'm going to be recording soon for some, so keep an eye out on socials. I'll let you know about that as well. And of course, for my books, definitely Nadia and Aiden. That's my newest book. You can check that one out. It's Kindle Unlimited, and paperback. Also, Bainbridge. So I'm looking to get a new cover out soon for Bainbridge, but you can still get that one Kindle Unlimited. I did see somebody there were some Kindle Unlimited reads on there. So with Kindle, you don't need to have an actual Kindle device. All you need is an app on your phone or on your tablet, and you can get the movies through Amazon onto your device there. It's a great way to get the films, or sorry, great way to get the books. The other thing about it is even though the books are a lot cheaper on Kindle, I don't make any less from that. So if you get the book on Kindle, the royalty is the same, even though it costs you like $10 less to get it on there. So keep that in mind as well, because the amount of cost for it to print the book, that's really where the markup comes in. And then with Kindle Unlimited, the way that works is you subscribe for a monthly fee, and you have unlimited reading. So you can read whatever you want within that, each month, depending on, what I don't know if there's subscription rates or anything, if there's different tiers. But once you subscribe, you do that. And then the way it works for me is I get paid per page that you read. So if you've got Kindle Unlimited and you find one of my books and you go through it and read it, I get paid. I don't know how much it is per page, but it's something like that. So if you read the whole book, it doesn't cost you any more, right? Because you're already paying for the subscription, but then I get the residuals from that. So it's another way you can check the book out as well there. But Kindle is a great option, I think, for people. I mean, I know a lot of people like getting the paperback as well, because you can have it on your shelf, and they look great on the shelf as well. So however you want to buy the books, I always appreciate that. So but yeah, definitely check out obviously Bainbridge. Starting to think about what I would do for a sequel for that one. So hopefully maybe in the next year or so, we'll get that going as well. All right, so why don't we wrap our opening here? We'll have John Crossman after Movie Diner playing our theme song. And then when we come back, Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews will be on, and we will talk about Death by Temptation. All right, welcome back to the DTVC podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I am joined by a very special guest. We've got Freddie Young from Full Moon Reviews. Welcome back, Freddie.
Thanks for having me back, man.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. We're talking about Death by Temptation. So that's going to be, we'll be getting into that one in a little bit, but that's I think I even call it a Troma classic. I think it's got that kind of reputation.
I think it's more of a cult film at this point, but yeah, it's very underrated.
Yeah, it's definitely a great one. So we'll be getting that one in a little bit. And then the other thing is, this episode is going to air the Tuesday after the new Captain America film comes out. But as we're recording this, it hasn't come out yet. It's a little bit before it. So but I thought I'd get your thoughts on that, because the last couple times you've been on, we've talked about some of the Marvel movies that had come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a relevant topic because obviously Death by Temptation is a very black horror, centric horror film. I feel like Captain America being a black man, especially during this time in our society, is very important to talk about. I'm wondering how people will take Sam Wilson as the new Captain America compared to Steve Rogers, who's blonde and white, obviously blue eyes. I'm curious how much money this movie makes, because I feel like this could either be a hit or it could be a big flop, depending on the audience.
Well, the audience, and the other thing is that, one, this movie was completely reworked. And so
Yeah.
that always hurts the movie. The other thing is, I think Marvel fans have more anticipation for the Daredevil series coming out than they do for
Hmm.
this movie. And so I think the thing is, this movie could potentially do poorly, and it has nothing to do with Anthony Mackie's performance or any of that. But it'll be blamed on that kind of thing. It might be blamed on the fact that there's a black Captain America, which I think would be a horrible thing.
Yeah. I'm not sure how well the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show did on Disney. Um, I'm not sure if it was a big hit or not. I know WandaVision was a big hit, Loki was a big hit, but no one really talks about that series all that much. So I'm wondering if like people will go, oh, do we really want to see anyone other than Steve Rogers as Captain America? And the fact that Chris Evans is coming back for Doomsday, I guess Secret Wars also is kind of also like, okay, what's the deal here? I mean, it's I don't know. I feel like a certain section of the country will watch this, but I feel like politics is our politics, right? So people might look at this as, oh, this is like a woke movie. Um, obviously Captain America's black, Falcon's not Latino. It's what I mean, it's a weird thing to talk about because I don't understand like society right now. I'm kind of like it boggles my mind the things that are happening in the world right now. I don't want to get political, but I look at the world. I'm going, is this really happening? Is this really our timeline? I don't understand how history has repeated itself. There's Google, there's documentaries, there's history books in class. I don't know. It's weird.
No. And I think you're right. I would go a step further and say it's not even political, right?
Right.
I mean, the comment I always make is, the truth has a liberal bias, or reality has
Hmm.
a liberal bias. And I think, it is one of those things where it's like there's a segment of the population that anytime they see, they found out that uh Silver Surfer is going to be the female version of Silver Surfer, which is
Right.
like his wife, and people were freaking out about that. Or, a completely fictitious character like Little Mermaid. I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't born yet when The Wiz came out, but I don't think people were freaking out about The Wiz. But if you made The Wiz today, there'd be a segment of the population that would just be like, "Oh, it's a woke version of Wizard of Oz."
Right. I don't even think the Wiz was that successful, was it, when it came out?
Yeah, it right. I guess it was kind of. I think it had more of a. I think it's had more success after the fact. I think it was the
Yeah.
the burgeoning video market, and then also sort of like secondary showings.
Right. Right. Um, yeah. It's tough. I mean, like you said, if we shot this film, they like half the film. I think it's like a $300 million budget. It's Yeah. This is gonna be really tough. I mean, it's being released at the right time. Black History Month, President's Day weekend. You would think. I think it's the only movie that comes out next weekend as we're recording this. So I'm hoping it makes money. Will it keep making money after the weekend it comes out? That's the issue. Because this is a test to see whether this is the right move or not. I think the only thing that could really save is maybe the Red Hulk. That's that attraction. I know they're bringing back Liv Tyler to play Bessie Ross. I think they could try to connect that again. So who knows? Maybe that'll bring in people. I just right. I can't trust the audience right now. I feel like everybody's divided on things, and I feel like people will look at this and go, "Oh, they're trying to sell me on something I don't want to believe in or want to accept." So I mean, and plus we don't know even though the movie's good, and they reshot half of it, so we don't know what the deal is.
Right. Well, because if you think about through history, right? I mean, like you think, from comic book movie history. I mean, you've got like the Elektra movie that, like,
Mm,
none of the bad part, none of the reasons why Elektra went bad was because it was a female-led action movie. It's because
right,
of
right.
the story, all the other stuff that was involved.
Hmm.
Catwoman, right? None of the reasons why Catwoman were bad was because we had, an African American woman in the lead. Though that's the reason Halle Berry took that role. Halle Berry was like, everybody told her, don't take this movie. It's horrible. Don't do this.
Right, right.
But she was like, no, there's a black woman we don't get parts like this often. And so when she got the Razzie for that movie, she brought her Oscar that she won for Monsters Ball up on the to the podium with her to accept the Razzie, and she still defends that movie to this day. But Ike Perlmutter, who had a lot of sway over Marvel until he kind of was forced out, and now it's Kevin Feige, the CEO. I can't think of his name of Bob Iger. They kind of are running
Yeah.
things. Yeah, they're running it more now. But when Ike Perlmutter, when there was the North Korea hack of Sony, they saw emails where he said, like, no, you can't make a movie with women in the lead. Look at what Elektra, look at Catwoman. And that's why with the early phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you don't get a female-led movie until the first Captain Marvel movie.
Marvel,
Um,
right.
and then same thing, with a black-led movie, even though you had the success of the Blade movies, because of Ike Perlmutter kind of forcing his hand on that. It wasn't until we get Black Panther. And with Black Panther, I mean, they had to make that movie perfect. And it is, I think for a Marvel movie, it's as close to perfect as it gets. But it's almost like they had to make it, because if they had any issues with it, everybody would have come down on it as being, even at that time, of being woke and all those kinds of things. And so yes, unfortunately, what this movie, this Captain America movie, is up against, when the chances of it being as good as the first Black Panther movie are really slim, based on whatever everything else it's up against, which is really too bad. 'Cause
Yeah.
I like Anthony Mackie. I liked him from the moment they introduced him in Captain America: Winter Soldier. They've been setting him up for this part. If you know from the comic books,
Right.
this is what he was supposed to do.
Hmm.
So if they did anything other than this, it wouldn't have worked either. So it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I don't think we should be damned at all, right? This should be, if the movie's good, people should like it.
Yeah. Back to Black Panther. I think that film worked because one, he was in Civil War. He was a big highlight of that movie. They didn't overuse him. They used him in the right moments. And then Black Panther was very, Afrocentric, and it kept that same tone throughout. And you had a cool villain, Killmonger. The actors were fantastic. The direction was fantastic. It really captured this zeitgeist at the time, and people still say Wakanda Forever. I mean, even the second Black Panther did pretty well, even considering Chadwick Boseman died. Um, I don't know how people feel about Anthony Mackie as Captain America. That's the issue. Because people still see him as just a sidekick to Steve Rogers. It's I, I think it really depends on who watched the TV show on Disney. If people enjoy that show, I think people will check this out. I just don't know if um, it's tough to call. I really don't know. I feel like people, like you say, they're talking more about Daredevil. I think Fantastic Four, the trailer just came out. People are talking about that more. It's tough. I feel like it's stuck in a bad spot. Um, and I have a feeling it's probably gonna do better on Disney Plus, probably on digital. I don't know if it's gonna do very well in the theater, to be honest with you.
No, and I mean, I was just looking at my schedule, and I was like, I don't know when I'm going to be, because I won't be able to see it the weekend it opens. And so I was like, okay, because I'd had it on my calendar, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make sure I watch it and get out there and support it. But then it was like, okay, I don't know if it makes it to early March. That's probably when I'll be able to see it. Hopefully it does. I mean, I would hope it makes it at least a few weeks in the theater. But nowadays, you never know, right? Like, the movie could
Right.
go quick nowadays. So I mean, I don't think Craven was in there that long, so I don't, um, but you're right. I think this, the thing I hope, and the other thing I think that's happening too, is it seems like there might be a soft reboot coming after Doomsday, uh, or after Secret Wars, one of those two, or whatever the second of the two Avengers movies is. They're thinking about a soft reboot, and I wonder if they're sort of auditioning all of these characters, and whoever does well enough will be there around. Otherwise, they'll be recast. I think they're already talking about recasting Black Panther. Um,
Right. Right.
so that's the other thing I fear, kind of, for Anthony Mackie, because he seems like he's committed to the role. He was talking about, like, doing another movie where he fights Juggernaut. He wants them to bring Juggernaut in, and he wants to fight Juggernaut in there. So he's into it. He wants to do it. So I hope it's not a situation where, like, this is it. If it doesn't work, then he's out, and they're going to put somebody else in.
Well, I'm looking at the scheduling after Brave New World, which is the new Captain America movie. Um, there's really no big movie coming out like close to that, so maybe it will do pretty okay. Um, will it be like a big blockbuster? Probably not, but I feel like it'll probably make his budget back. Hopefully, I'm sure he's gonna be in Doomsday. I'm sure he's gonna be in Secret Wars. So I don't think Mackie should be hurt too much by this. But I feel like if they're expecting like a Endgame level kind of money, I don't think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, it's really tough because the box office I think right now is very unpredictable. You have Mufasa and Sonic still out there, all these animated movies out there. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what people want to see these days. To be honest with you, I feel like superhero movies have kind of like the peak has been passed. You know what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah.
Um, so I feel like I feel like it'll make its budget back. I'm sure it'll make a small profit. I don't think it's gonna be like $1 billion movie. Um, and I feel like a lot of the it really depends on the global market also because I don't know how the global market will see him as Captain America either. Um, it's a tough sell. Um, Despite the fact that he's been set up to be this role. I mean, he's been like you said, he's been doing this role for like 10 years. So you would think like the fans would be behind them, but I don't know. It's tough. I feel like if Bucky was in this movie, it'd be more successful. To be honest with you, because people love Sebastian Stan. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens because I'm very curious like how this does. I definitely going to see this the opening weekend. So um, but I'm not excited for it, but I'm like, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
It's they've been studying
Yeah.
this stuff for a while now. I saw the TV show. I enjoyed the TV show. Let me see what they're going with this character.
Yeah, that's what I've got to do. I've got to watch the TV show, which I saw. It's actually not that long. It's only like 6 episodes, I guess. So it's like kind of
Yeah,
more.
yes, it's like 6 hours, and that probably about
Yeah,
because each episode's an hour about.
yeah. So
Plus,
yeah,
plus
so
you have to, plus you have to watch that for Thunderbolts anyway, because U.S. agents and Thunderbolts. So
yeah, yeah. And so that's another one's coming out. Yeah, and of course that
yeah,
one. Yeah, so I have watched Hawkeye, so at least I'm up,
okay.
with some of the other characters that are in there. But yeah, it's I've kind of been trying to catch myself up on some of the Marvels that I've missed. Like I've gotten all of the Infinity Saga except for the second Spider-Man movie that comes after the two movies, and then
Oh,
Ant-Man and Wasp. Those are only two of the Infinity Saga that I haven't seen. Um, but then the multiverse saga, I haven't really seen much of that at all. I saw the obviously Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that they count that as part of the multiverse. And then I saw Captain Marvel, the Marvels, and then a couple of the series. I've seen Hawkeye and Moon Knight, but really nothing else. So I mean, it's all there on Disney Plus, and we subscribe to Disney Plus, so it's like it's all available. Plus, we downgraded our plan so that after I think it's February 24th, we've got commercials again. So this is the last bit
okay.
that I could enjoy with commercials. So I probably should just get these, get them in the can as soon as possible.
Yeah. I had also I don't think the multiverse stuff. I don't think this film really focuses on the multiverse, so maybe that'll help the
Yeah.
movie actually. Okay, it feels like more of a grounded thriller, like political thriller. So maybe that will help the film. So I don't know. I'm rooting for this movie. I hope it does well. I feel like um this is a character we need right now. Sam Wilson as Captain America. I'm just wondering how the public will take it,
Yeah.
considering what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like Marvel can be, that fan base can be, on a little bit on the bad side. Like I play Marvel Puzzle Quest on my phone, and
Mm,
I follow the subreddit, and it's like if they, have a female version of a character, there's always somebody in there who's like, oh, why does it have to be gender swapped? And then there's like 10 people who say that's the character, that's who this is. This is, um, so you still get that. I don't think Marvel's quite as bad as say like Star Wars fans. So it's not quite to where Star Wars ones where you just get a lot of white bros who just
right,
complain
right.
about things. But I wonder too because a lot of the Marvel fans, part of the things that's hurt Marvel in recent years is that sort of that late '80s, early '90s Marvel fan that really grew with the series. Those are the ones who were in there like their 20s, not quite 30s, when Infinity War came out, and they were coming out, pushing that thing over $2 billion, and they were the ones who all came out in 2021 when the pandemic ended to go see the third Spider-Man movie and make that one like 1.9 billion.
Right,
And I think
right.
what happened in 2022 with them, if that was the year I've got it right, or 2023, right? Because was that the year 2023 that the Marvels came out? I think that was.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
2022, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so 2023, that was the year there were too many Marvel movies, and it seemed like that age cohort had gotten to be too old to go to the theater all the time. And I wonder if this Captain America movie might be enough where it's like it's Valentine's weekend. So maybe some of those millennials who are married with kids now, they can say, okay, this is the weekend we're gonna have, you know, we'll get the babysitter one of those nights and we'll go do it as a date for Valentine's Day. And that will kind of push it over the edge a little bit too. But like you said, there's not a lot on the docket. I think, for example, what killed the Marvels, I think, was that we also had Guardians of the Galaxy movie that year. And that movie did really well, compared to the other films that came out. I think they looked at their calendars and said, okay, we've got kids. It's a lot of work to drive to the theater. Like 'cause a lot of them don't live in the city, so they've got to drive, park, get the babysitter, all that. And they looked at it and were like, okay, of all the Marvel and DC movies that are out this year, what do we really want to see? Well, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. That's the one we've been with this team for 10 years now. This is the one we really want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if this year it's gonna be a little different, that maybe it's this one. This is the one that they look at the year and say, I mean, I think the Superman movie is gonna probably also be one that they're like, oh, this, we really got to see what happens with
Yeah.
this one. So
Yeah, it's. I also feel like also I feel like those earlier movies did so well because one, they were built really well. They had each film had a voice, a different voice. Also, there were characters that, like you said, like the Gen X, early millennial people knew, and I feel like Phase 4, Phase 5, they're using a lot of like newer, modern characters, like Miss Marvel, who was like a very recent character. When in the last 10 years, a lot of older fans might not know who she is, and might not be interested in watching what she's doing. Um, so that's why I feel like those films like No Way Home did well. Deadpool Wolverine, because they had older superhero actors come back and play those roles that those fans knew who they were. And I feel like that was the attraction of this is the reason why we bought a ticket. So I feel like having Anthony Mackie as Sam, that's fine, but you have new Falcon, which was introduced in the TV show. We don't really know who this character is. So people might be like, do you want to wait till digital or Disney, or do you want to watch this in theaters? I feel that's why they put in the Hulk in the movie. I feel like that's the reason why, to get people into the theater. Oh, the Hulk's in here. We gotta watch this now. Um, so I feel like it's a generational thing. I feel like putting these newer characters into these movies, and people are like, oh well, I don't know these characters, and why should I care? You know what I mean? I feel like Thunderbolts might suffer from that also, because I feel like a lot of those characters are B level, C level characters, which is the point of the whole concept. But I don't know, does that translate into money? That's the issue.
right, because James Gunn pulled it off with the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Right,
and I think everybody thought we can just do it all the time now. That
right.
comic book movies just release it and it'll print money, and that's not really how it works.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I think about this movie is that they kind of upgraded William Hurt with Harrison Ford.
The forward, right.
Yeah, and that's a big coup, I think, because in the commercials it's like 50-50 Mackie and Ford, and I think that sells it more. I wonder too how much the Breaking Bad fans are going to come for Giancarlo Esposito, because I think that's another big pull to have him in this movie. So they're at least getting some people around Mackie to kind of help in sort of the supporting roles. But I think you're right too that the Winter Soldier. I wonder if they were afraid if they had Winter Soldier it would detract from him too much.
I
Um,
think that's what it was. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, because
yeah,
it would have been nice, to have him. I mean, who knows? Maybe he is. Maybe we just don't know. Maybe they've done a good job of keeping it from us.
yeah. I feel like Sebastian Stan would have overshadowed that movie, and I feel like
Yeah,
a lot of people would have complained, "Oh, the white guy is the star." I mean,
yeah,
it's always a debate. I think that's why I think Thunderbolts will do very well, because he's in it. Plus, Florence Pugh is also in it.
yeah.
I think, and David Harbour also. I feel like those three alone will anchor that movie. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is like this just feels like Daredevil's been talked about. Thunderbolt, like I kind of heard some buzz on that. Obviously, Fantastic Four, the trailer just came out. That looks pretty good. You have Galactus finally showing, the real Galactus finally showing up. Um, not just a cloud with a hand. Um,
Right.
and um, and yeah. So I figure So I feel like this is like the odd duck. But I'm hoping like people give it a chance. I hope it does well. I hope the reshoots were worth it, because I from what I've heard, like they did a lot of like major changes, and Yeah, they say that this might make at least 90 to $100 million that weekend. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and it's less than 2 hours, which is good. So
yes. Which I had read, I guess like younger fans are worried because they seem to think a movie's only good if it's over 2 hours. But for
no,
younger fans listening, no, it doesn't have to be 2 hours. You can get in and out in that, it doesn't have to be over 2 hours. And it's actually a good thing, if you're not there for that long.
because I feel like Giancarlo Esposito is the new Samuel Jackson. He's just
Yeah.
in everything.
Yes.
Like, like, dude, don't you sleep?
Right. Right.
Especially with every
Exactly.
fucking project. Dude.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because growing up, right? I mean, obviously this kind of dovetails a little bit with what we'll be talking about in a bit here with him and Do the Right Thing, where he was big in that. He did so many different things, and then with the Breaking Bad thing, it was almost like it was kind of his breakthrough that for people that didn't know him. Suddenly, he was everywhere, and yeah, I think sometimes with shows like that, like Breaking Bad, The Sopranos, Mad Men, some of those ones, they have such a large fan base that you can insert them and that they can kind of take that fan base with them somewhat. And I hope that that happens here because yeah, adding him to this cast is another positive for sure.
Well, the fact that like I said, there's not a major movie coming out close to this, so I'm hoping like this sustains, a level of an audience. Because I feel like people want to go to a theater to see something, and I feel like this will be the film people want to go see. Unless they like re-release like the Oscar movies,
Right.
so people can watch that. But I think this will do okay. I don't think it's gonna do like I don't think it's gonna bomb like the Marvels. I think that's pretty much the bottom of the bottom, to be honest. At this point, I don't think it's gonna get worse than that. But I feel like this won't be like as big as any Chris Evans Captain America movie.
Yeah. Well, because yeah, and then the other thing too, I think, is that well, yeah, because I mean, if you think about right with the Civil War Captain America. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, Winter Soldier, that one, I talk about that one a lot because it's just such a fantastic comic book movie, but also action movie. Um,
Right.
I mean, they really took a chance with the first one because they set that thing completely in the 1940s almost, and um, to make something that good, I think like you're talking about with that early MCU, that first phase of the MCU, you got some really unique movies there, and that first Captain America really was that. Um, and then you get such a fantastic straight ahead action for the second one, Winter Soldier, and then that third one. I remember those commercials for Civil War where you see Spider Man and you see Black
Yeah.
Panther, and you're like, oh wow, this is when we're finally going to get people all together here. And that one, because that's the one out of the Captain Americas that grossed over 1 billion. It just, when you throw all those names in there like that, it's hard to it's hard to keep people away, I think.
Yeah, I like to call that movie Avengers 2.5 because
Yes.
that's what it is.
Right.
Because Age of Ultron didn't do that great, so I thought, okay, this is the real Avengers Part Two. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I feel like this movie kind of needed that. I feel like they needed a real like a Spider Man, somebody like a Black Panther. I guess Red Hulk is that character, but I feel like how many people know who Red Hulk is?
Right.
So it's tough. I feel like they're probably on the right path considering Doctor Doom is going to be like the major villain. But I feel like it's going to kind of be rough getting there. I think.
Yeah.
Um, because Doomsday doesn't come out to what 2 years, so it's going to
Right.
be a while.
Yeah. And they have so many projects that they kind of keep having and pulling back. We don't know what's happening with the new Spider-Man because there's sort of that
Mm,
sense with Sony, like, do they want to incorporate Venom because they're done? It seems like they're done at least with that Spider-Man, that Sony Spider-Verse thing. Um, so then it's like, okay, well, will they let Sony take the wheel on that a little bit more and make it something different? And so that kind of is kind of sitting there. Obviously, Blade, right? They keep pulling that one back
mm,
from
yeah.
and yeah, I don't know. I was trying to think like what else they would have coming. Because I know obviously Fantastic Four, but I guess they keep talking about maybe doing like a Midnight Suns instead of a Blade. But yeah, it seems like a lot of these projects on Marvel, it's like they don't it used to be like they'd have things mapped out a little bit further in advance.
I feel like they also have like the Young Avengers coming out. Also, I
Yeah.
think they're setting that up. I don't know if you saw Agatha all along, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the set. That's pretty much the setup for the Young Avengers. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so, so I think that's also coming. Yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know what's there. gonna do. I just I think the X-Men really, that's really what's left. Um, uh, which I'm kind of worried about at this point
Right.
because who's gonna replace all these people? I was like, I feel Hugh Jackman might keep doing the Wolverine. I really don't know. Um, it's yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like they're gonna look at Superman, the new Superman, and go, do we really need to recast people? So we just keep the same people. Um, I think that's gonna be the real test. If that does well, I think they'll reboot. If it doesn't, they might reconsider rebooting. Um, it's and then Superman right now. I'm excited for. I think that's gonna do well. I don't know. It's I don't know I don't know what they go with this. I really don't know. Um, I feel like they're more
Yeah,
focused on the TV shows now, like Daredevil. I think Ironheart's coming out also.
that's right.
Um, so I know they're doing another Punisher. I heard the Punisher season. So I feel like they're more focused on that right now. So,
Yeah, and I mean that's
it's
the thing
tough.
too. Well, because I think part of the reason why this movie is coming out now, I mean, part of it is obviously February is Black History Month, but I think also it's been sitting for a while, and they felt like we got to get it out there, we got to make it happen. But I do wonder if they had reversed it, like if Valentine's weekend, President's Day weekend, or whatever, they were releasing Daredevil, and there was some momentum because everybody watches Daredevil and they see all these characters in it, there might be a sense of like, oh, let's just keep consuming Marvel stuff, and they might go out and see the movie. Um, on the other hand, I guess there was some momentum, not from Marvel movies or comic book movies, but I think Nosferatu, that got
Mm,
movie fans to the theater, and
right.
Wicked, was another one. I think there is a little bit of a let's keep going to the movies feel. At least like it's kind of the sense that I'm getting, and I wonder if that will also help this movie, that people are back going to the movies more, and they're enjoying the cinematic experience. And like you said, there isn't really anything else coming out right now, so that might be the thing, that on Valentine's Day weekend, this might be the perfect spot for it.
Yeah, I feel like the word of mouth is going to really help this movie. Like, if it's a good movie, people are going to talk about it, and people go see it. I think, like I said, I think it'll do okay. I don't think it's going to be like a bomb or anything like that. So I feel like his job will be safe.
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie will do another Captain America, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be like a big blockbuster, Black Panther type of level kind of movie. I don't think that's going to happen. But
Yeah.
I do think it'll make I say it'll make maybe $500 million. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if
We'll
it,
see.
if it if it can get like 600 or 700, that'll at least
Yeah,
be about three. Because it's funny, the budget that they're citing on IMDb is 180 million, but I think
right.
that doesn't
It's
count
more. It
some of
was
those.
more.
Right,
Yeah,
it
it's
does not
more.
count the reshoots, I think, in the right way.
It's the reshoots. I heard the reshoots with the reshoots was 300 million. Plus, you got to factor in the marketing for
Yeah.
the movie, which is a lot of like. So I say maybe 400. So it's like, ooh, like
Right.
it's
Yeah.
scary to think about. Like, okay, this movie, it's I don't feel like it's an event. That's the problem. I feel
Right.
like Fantastic Four feels like an event. Superman feels like an event. This does not.
Yeah. Right.
So
Deadpool and Wolverine was an event.
right, it was an event. Right. I feel like that's why Wicked did so well. Nosferatu
Yeah.
did so well. They had like popcorn buckets. People go, okay, this is a major deal. So Sonic did well. Foster did well. Those like event movies. So I don't know about this one. They might see it as oh, it's like a TV Disney Plus movie. Who knows?
Right,
I don't know.
right. Yeah, you just don't know. I think one of the things that did hurt some of the movies last year, like The Fall Guy and Furiosa,
Yeah,
was that
yeah.
movies were so spaced out that there wasn't an ability to really create that momentum. It's almost like Disney kind of created it on their own by having some real big properties, right? So they had the Inside Out sequel, which I
Right.
think that one ended up being the highest grosser of the year, I
Hmm.
think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that and that and then Deadpool Wolverine were right behind it.
Yeah, yeah. So they kind of had two back to back. So for all those people out there that say Disney is go woke, go broke, but they're doing okay for themselves.
Right.
They're doing the most highest grossing films of the year. So yeah, they know what they're doing. And I think the other thing is, I think Kevin Feige, he collected around the same time we did, in the kind of the 80s 90s period. So he gets it on that level. And I think there's if you look at the the success, kind of the hit to not rate for Marvel movies, people were kind of trying to create this sort of this narrative that they've been doing really bad because of the Marvels, because Ant-Man and the Quantumania didn't do well,
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
which was it, the Thor, right? The Love and Thunder didn't
Love and
do as
Thunder.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But really, if you look at it, the Wakanda Forever movie did well. The Guardians of the Galaxy movie did well. And then of course, the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, that one did almost $1 billion. So
Hmm.
they don't usually go that many movies in a row with duds. And if you look at the grosses on their films, they don't really have, like, when you look at DC's year in 2023, right? That last year of the DC extended universe, you see it, right? It's a lot of movies that like barely make their budget back, which means, like you said, it doesn't account for marketing, right? It's like, 150 million was the budget and they made like 140. And you don't really see that often with MCU movies. It's a rare, like the Marvels, and I'd say what's the Marvels and the Ant-Man Quantumania is kind of in that range. And then I think like the first Hulk movie or whatever, that the
Right.
Incredible Hulk, that's the second one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
MCU. But really, they don't really do that. They usually, at the very least, they don't quite make three times their budget back, but they usually do well enough.
Yeah, I feel like that's what this movie's gonna do. It's gonna just do well enough. And that's probably what they're looking for. They probably know what's going on. They probably go,
Yeah.
we're not gonna blame him for this. Like, we
Yeah.
know the world is changing at the moment, and we know people might look at this character a certain way. So I guess as long as they make some money, they probably be okay with it. You know what I mean? Um, and I feel like they're kind of on a momentum because, like you said, Deadpool Wolverine did very well, very well. Agatha All Along was a big hit on Disney Plus. You look at the Nielsen stuff; people actually watch that show,
Yeah.
to the point that they're thinking about a second season. And yeah, I feel like maybe there's momentum. Fantastic Four. Maybe they go, oh well, maybe this connects to Fantastic Four. This connects to Thunderbolts. So we're gonna have to watch it eventually. So let's just take the time out and do it this weekend or the weekend after. So I don't know. Um, so I'm hoping for the best. Because I really like Anthony Mackie. I like the Black Captain America. That is a comic book character. It's not a woke thing. This is
Right.
an
Right.
established character in the comics. This was the plan the whole time. Um, in the comics, there are two Captain Americas, Steve Rogers and Falcon. So it's like you just gotta accept it. It's just it's a comic book movie. Well, why are we getting so up in arms about it? Like,
Yeah.
it's if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. That's what you got to do.
Yeah. And
So
I think too, I wonder if part of the reason why Falcon and Winter Soldier wasn't as well received is that they kind of felt like they really had to stay true to the comics, where there's that US agent period in between, right? Where he takes over as Captain America,
mm,
kind of doesn't,
yeah,
before the reins get handed. Actually, in the comics, it was a completely different thing, because there was a long period of time where Captain Steve Rogers comes back in the 80s into the 90s, and then
yeah,
Sam Wilson takes over. But it's like you have to wait through that series before Sam Wilson finally takes over as Captain America. And I think there was a sense at the end of Endgame that he was going to be Captain America right there. That when Steve Rogers is old, which, sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Endgame, I just kind of get. So,
the 2% of you who haven't.
right, exactly. I was probably one of the last people to see it. So yeah, but when he picks up the shield, you think that's it. He's going to be Captain America. But then the series actually doesn't do that right away. They kind of
Right.
take some time to get to it. And I do. Like you said, I think there are enough fans of Marvel. I hope that there are enough fans. I think it's just that sense that what killed the Marvels, I think, and what hurt Ant-Man Quantumania, and even Thor Love and Thunder, was that the Marvel hasn't done a good enough job to get younger fans, like even younger than, say, the millennials that were coming out at the time, the sort of the late 80s, early 90s period of millennials. Um, they haven't gotten the Gen Z on board as much yet. And
Right.
I don't know if this would be the movie that does it. I think they still need to get those millennials to come see it. Those are the fans. Those are like the hardcore. Those are the people that, like, when I remember we had to take our cat to the vet, and there was like three young women who were working reception and vet techs and things like that, that were out in the lobby while I was waiting for our cat to come out. And they were all talking about different Marvel things, and they were just talking about with that kind of that obsession, of just like that,
Hmm.
And I think that's that crew that you need to keep getting to the theater, but they're older now. I mean, these young women, they were like in their late 20s, early 30s at this point. So, they're not always they're kind of having to choose what they want. But I think if you can get them that core to out to come see these movies, that's enough. I think Deadpool and Wolverine got more of us kind of us more like late 70s, early 80s born fans who remember when Deadpool was a new character, when he was introduced in New Mutants, and then,
Right.
Wolverine, was huge at that time. I think, the only thing we didn't get right was we didn't get a Punisher in that movie, but otherwise we had, everybody we would have wanted, Blade and everybody, and so that was kind of almost like for us. But I think it also got those younger fans out too because they were just like, yeah, this is really cool. I can get behind this.
Yeah, that was a viral sensation that came out. Like you couldn't escape, the videos that people were posting from that movie. Like everybody was spoiling the hell out of that. Like, oh, look who's in the
Yes,
movie! Look who's in this movie. Um,
right.
I think Channing Tatum was a big part of that success. I think people like the Gambit thing. I think he's a big hit among Gen Z people anyway. And I feel like this movie's kind of missing that. To be honest, I feel like Harrison Ford is great, but no one went to see those Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
So like, is he really a sell? I don't know. I feel like the cast is a big part of it. Like Tom Holland is gonna always be successful because Gen Z loves that guy.
Yes.
Him and Zendaya. So it's I think Wicked also, like Ariana Grande, was a big appeal of that. So it's I feel like a lot has to do with star power. So does this movie really like relying on star power? Is it relying on fans to come back from earlier films to be like, hey, this is the next installment, and we want to make this a success? And I don't know if people are willing to go to a theater to watch this or just wait for Disney Plus and be like, okay, I'll just watch it on Disney Plus. Um, it's the audience is so weird right now. I don't know. No, plus the theater experience is not that great now either. So I don't know. It's like, is this really like a Valentine's Day movie? Like, not really. It's like a political thriller. Do you want to take your girlfriend to a political thriller? Like, I mean, it's they probably go see Hard Eyes, which comes out
Right.
this weekend. What we're talking about. So I mean, it's weird. It's a weird vibe.
Well, because you know what I think it is. I think it would be like that kind of that hardcore millennial fan
Yeah, it has
who
to be. Yeah.
that were married, but like they were
Hmm.
fans of Marvel maybe when they were single, and then they met their spouse, and they both love Marvel together. And the thing is, again, those fans, they've got kids now, and the they've got to decide like when. And I think the other thing too, one thing I've noticed about that age cohort is they do a lot more with their kids. When we were growing up, right, it's like you just get a babysitter. The parents, my parents didn't like going to movies that often, but that was a kind of more common thing. Whereas now it's like, what can we do as a family? And I think that's where Wicked comes in. Especially with those kids being a little bit older now. If those were kids that were born
Right.
in the mid 2010s, they would be old enough for Wicked. But even like Mufasa, and Inside Out too, they can do them as a family. And then when the kids go to bed at night, they fire up Disney Plus and watch the movies on there. But if this can get them to get the babysitter, like Guardians of the Galaxy got them to get the babysitter, they might come out and see it.
Yeah, that's a big if.
Right, right. It is,
That's the
yeah.
that's the problem. Like we don't know. Like it's I can't guess like how well this movie will do. Like I'm hoping it does well. I'm hoping I would say it's probably gonna be like middle of the road in terms of box office. But I guess that's better than being the Marvels, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, Quantum Man didn't do that great either. So that surprised me how low that did. Um, which makes me wonder like, are people really interested in this? Because Quantum Man was built up so well with a new villain. Paul Rudd, people love that guy. But it's tough. We don't know. We don't know.
Well, and part of it too, I think, if you look at those Ant-Man movies in general, if you look at, how well they do, really the only one that does anything is Ant-Man and Wasp. But that, I don't really judge when I think of box office production or, movies, how well they did the box office. That period of time in between uh, Infinity War and Endgame, it was kind of one of those
Yeah,
sort of like rising tides raising all boats kind of thing because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that was, I mean, that was the one, we had the one billion-dollar earner for DC was Aquaman. That came in that
Aquaman.
window. Yeah. I mean, Venom, that's the highest grosser of the Sony movies.
Hmm.
That first Venom does almost 900 million at that time. Obviously Deadpool 2 was big at that time, was almost 800
Right, right.
itself. Yeah, but he also Captain Marvel, right, does like 1.1, so like everything in between, Infinity War and Endgame all did really well. I mean, even Into the Spider-Verse, right? The cartoon, when I'm looking at the numbers, that one did almost 400 billion. So everybody wanted comic book stuff at that time.
Yeah,
And that's always kind of a hard thing because it's like, yeah, when you look at Ant-Man otherwise, if Ant-Man doesn't, and even then, Ant-Man only does like 600 million according to Wikipedia. But then, yeah, when you get into the other Ant-Man movie, um, yeah, and like nothing had come out about Jonathan Majors at that point. So it wasn't like people were turning away from it the same way I think fans did turn away from that Flash movie because of
right.
Ezra Miller.
Miller, right.
Yeah, I don't think I think really what did it was the fact that people were looking at the movie slate that year and they're just like, well, between Ant-Man, Guardians of the and of course there's the full slate of DC movies that were out that year too. I think they said, okay, the one movie we really have to go see is Guardians of the Galaxy because we're invested in these characters. We've seen them, we love watching them. And so that's the one. I think the other one, of course, Wakanda Forever came out in November of
Right.
2022. I think those
Hmm.
two, I think that's how people looked at their year. They said, okay, these are the two that we need to go see, and everything else we'll catch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and those are the two films that had like the most like momentum behind them. Like
Yeah,
Wakanda Forever. What were they going to do after Bosman died? You know what I
yeah,
mean? What was going to happen? So that was the curiosity there. Plus Namor, that was a
yeah,
different villain that no one really used. And then you had Guardians 3, which was like, oh, this is the end of the trilogy. James Gunn is
yeah,
leaving for DC. How's it going to end? And people checked it out.
yeah.
And that was probably the best, other than No Way Home, probably the best movie they've done so far. And Deadpool Wolverine, obviously.
Yeah.
I guess those are top three.
Yeah.
But but yeah, like I said, like I feel like after Endgame, it got really tough. I feel like after Endgame was like, okay, we're done, we're spent. Like it
Right.
was the end. It was the end of everything. Um, it felt like like Return of the Jedi. Okay, everything after that's kind of like whatever. Um,
Right.
so it's like and I think after that, what Dark Phoenix came out and that bombed.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so it was like right there is like, okay, now we see where things are headed, because now it's like you would think like X-Men would kind of do pretty good. Okay, that movie just did not do anything.
No. Well,
So
and part of the reason for that was that Disney had just bought out that 20th Century
Fox, right?
Fox,
Yeah,
and they
Fox,
just didn't
right?
put any money behind it at all. They just kind of let the whole thing die. So that didn't
Right.
help. But I mean, it came out in June of 2019. I didn't realize this. It came out in June of 2019. Avengers
Yeah.
Endgame was still rolling in the theater.
Going. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like 6 weeks after. So I mean, Avengers Endgame. I mean, that was like the entire. I remember that there were when Endgame came out, there were movie theaters that were doing marathons of all the MCU movies to that point. Because I remember a radio station paid one of their like interns or something to watch all of them. And I think it was at Coolidge Corner Theater in Boston. He went and sat for like 22 hours. He watched every MCU
Wow.
movie to that point. But that was like the thing, right? Like you said, Endgame was this massive event. It was huge,
Hmm.
and I mean, the only movie that did better from like a literal gross, like not adjusted for inflation, was big Avatar because it was re-released, right? It was
Right. 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 Right.
yeah, and so and of course
It
both
it kind it
movies.
kind it kind of cheated. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and of course both movies have Zoe Saldana in them, so that's another
Right.
reason. Like you put
Hmm.
her in your movie, you're probably going to do pretty well. She's
Yeah.
Star Trek, Avengers, Avatar, just yeah. If you've got a big
Yeah.
franchise, yeah, just cast Zoe Saldana, and and I mean that's like an interesting idea. It's like doing like solo movies with some of those Guardians of the Galaxy cast because I think you could make a kind of a small scale thing, or like a Disney Plus kind of thing similar to like The Mandalorian with someone like that, a character like that. They've got a lot to work with, and it's kind of interesting to see, like you said, where it goes from here because this first one coming out of the gate is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah. This is gonna set the tone for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like I'm even curious, like Superman, will that even do as well as we think it will. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure what the audience is looking for. Maybe a lot of people are mad about Henry Cavill being kicked out. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know where. I don't know who the audience is at anymore. I don't know who's the audience for streaming, theaters. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's if you base it on online, you know that a lot of people are more negative than positive. So I don't know.
Right. Right.
It's tough. It's tough to judge because I don't like you talk to people in real life. They're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go see that, but are they gonna go see it? I don't know.
Yes.
It's weird.
Yeah, because you know that's you make a really great point about sort of the positivity negativity thing because it's like now we're on Blue Sky and there's definitely
Yeah.
a community that's developing and growing on Blue Sky, but the old Twitter days, the pre-Musk Twitter
Hmm.
days, it was
Yeah.
like when a new Marvel movie was coming out, like I mean, obviously Endgame's an obvious one, but I mean even like Black Panther. I remember when Wakanda Forever, when they first started teasing that was just like a huge trending topic on Twitter, and it was everywhere on there. Everybody was posting about it. You had I mean you couldn't go through your feed without somebody posting the trailer and saying I can't wait to see this, that kind of thing. And obviously with the new Twitter, I mean I haven't been on Twitter since November, so I don't know what it's like really on there now. But Blue Sky is still kind of developing
Right.
that community. But
Yeah.
I think that's another piece of it is I think because of the way Twitter became once Musk took over, where you couldn't kind of build those kinds of that you couldn't build that kind of momentum for things, or you couldn't have those kinds of conversations. It feels like kind of more of the negative conversations would come to the surface. It would be more people arguing about whether or not, Mindy Kaling should do a TV show about Velma from Scooby Doo,
Right.
right?
Right.
That it's
Right.
like, let's celebrate this Marvel movie. And I'm sure I can't even imagine what the conversation is like about this movie on Twitter. It's got to be horrible. And so it's kind of
Are people even talking about it? I don't even
right.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any buzz for this? I really don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't know.
Yeah. So
But yeah, I could I'm not on Twitter anymore, but I can only imagine like what people are saying.
yeah.
I guess I could check Reddit. Maybe I'll get some from there. But
Yes.
I don't know.
Oh,
I'm like I said I'm hoping this does well. I'm hoping.
yeah.
And I feel like like I said I feel like it'll do okay. I just don't think it'll be like don't expect like a big blockbuster.
No, no.
I feel like this will gain an audience like on digital and streaming. I feel like this is that type of movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, but it's interesting because I was looking at the on Wikipedia you can pull up I think that the pages films based on Marvel movies, and they list all of the gates. And just to our point there, I mean Marvel's is the only one that doesn't make its budget back out of the MCU ones. Obviously, yes, you've got like
Wow.
Craven. It's saying Craven did 61 million in the theater, which just blows my mind that it did so poorly. Um, but
I'm shocked by that, honestly.
yeah, I mean, it really just didn't have anything. That's a whole different topic, right? It's just how bad
Yeah.
Sony blew this whole Spider-Verse thing when
It, it's funny because I thought that was the best of the three that came out last year.
the Craven
Like,
one.
yeah, better than Venom 3 and better than Venom Web. I thought that was the best of the three.
Yeah,
And they
and
did
it
the
just
worst.
right because yeah, what it was. It didn't have a hook for people to want to go
Right,
see it.
right. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, Craven was a character in the comic books who, when you think of like your Spider-Man villains, right? Craven is like way down the list of
Hmm.
who you'd be wanting to make movies based on. Uh, you know, I think that like that Craven, like you said, like if maybe they introduced Craven in you know one of the Venom movies or something like that,
Right,
kind of the way that
right.
they did
Yeah,
with Black Panther. Uh,
yeah.
it's kind of yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Like Sony, like they were smart to you know kind of get in on the MCU thing, and I think that's kind of where their focus is. But yeah, I don't remember. I don't think there was anything in their contract that said they couldn't use Spider-Man in these movies. I guess they feel like it waters it down, right? If they use Spider-Man in these movies and then they release those MCU movies, they can't get those, billion-dollar earners. And so they decided like, okay, well, we'll just, like they've given themselves a cap with those. And I guess that they're done, right? They've kind of not officially, but it sounds like they're close to being officially saying like we're done making Spider-Man movies.
I think they said like pretty much they're not gonna do the spin-offs anymore. They're gonna focus mainly on Spider-Man centric films.
Yeah,
This is my thing. Like you had No Way Home, which was a big success.
yeah,
Why not give Andrew Garfield another run?
yeah,
It was like the biggest thing about that movie. Like make him on Venom Spider-Man or Craven Spider-Man or I mean I feel like Madam Web to me, like I don't know how that movie was even made. Like who thought that was a good idea? Like I even
right.
and I, this even before even watching, like who thought this was a good idea? Like who would want to see
Yeah,
this? Like it's
yeah,
like I like Venom. I get Venom's a big character. That's why it did so well. All three of them did very well.
yeah,
Tom Hardy's a likable guy. Everybody likes him. That's why it made so much money. I feel like Craven was like you said wasn't introduced, but you pick a British guy as a Russian. Um,
right,
and he speaks pretty much American in the movie.
right.
It's just very odd. The origin is totally different. And it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. You know what, Craven? I think Craven would have been good because I've got to see it now. Now that you mentioned it, you liked it. You said it was the best out of the three.
I didn't say it was good. I
Yeah.
just said it was
Oh,
better
okay.
than the other
Okay. All
three.
right. Better than,
It's
okay.
I think people like really ripped on it. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't think it deserved the hate it got.
Yeah.
It's watchable. Like I would rather watch that over Man and Web, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Because it
makes
doesn't
sense.
because Craven doesn't insult me as an audience member.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I like this movie's not good, but I kind of understand where this is going and why this is happening.
Right.
Venom 3, I just felt like it was a cash grab, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. I felt like Tom Hardy was just bored the whole time, to be honest. But then you got introduced Null. So
Well, because it sounds like maybe they're trying to set it up so that they can bring Venom and those other characters into the MCU. I think that might be their plan to start.
I guess. I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I
But,
mean, I don't know.
the Madam Web one, I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it on Netflix. And as a
Okay.
Netflix movie, as like kind of like, if it was direct to Netflix, as a direct to Netflix movie that you have fun with, that like you
Mm-hmm.
kind of can pick, can joke with and all those kinds of things, it works. But as a big budget blockbuster that's supposed to make tons of money, it doesn't, right?
Right.
It's,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, well, what are we doing here? Like, yeah, you've got Sydney Sweeney, and you kind of tease that at some point she's going to be Spider-Woman of some sort, but you don't do it, It's like, yeah, you know what it's like? It's like the first, it's like the Phantom Menace, right? And I remember Patton Oswalt made this joke about the Phantom Menace, where he was like, "What are we doing showing a kid, version of Darth Vader?" He's like, it's like if somebody says, "Hey, do you like Giselle? Oh yeah, she's hot." Giselle Bundchen. Oh yeah, she's hot.
Yeah.
Well, here's her dad's balls. And it's like, no, I don't want to see it. It's like, yeah,
Well,
and
Phantom Menace is another story entirely. I can get
yeah,
on a rant on that. Like
yeah,
Darth Maul, like you pretty much like promote him, and he's like he's better in the movie. But anyway,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's amazing. I think I think thinking about how many times these movies are wrong, how many times comic book movies are wrong. I mean, obviously, when we were growing up, they were more wrong than they were
yeah,
right.
yeah,
The fact that Kevin Feige and company have made so many that even like we're talking about Quantum Mania. And Quantum Mania still made $200 million more than its budget. So it's like he has so many. They have so many that do okay. And let's hope that the new Captain America at least just does okay. That at least kind of you know makes its budget back and a little bit more. Maybe what is it, three times their budget? I think is what you got to make to cover
yeah,
the advertising costs. You
yeah.
know, I think Kevin Feige he seems to have a good track record. If you go through, it's like if you go through any other franchise, whether it's Fox with either the Fantastic Four or the X-Men movies, DC with their extended universe, or even just with their big franchises, whether Superman or Batman, they kind of got out when the getting was good with the Dark Knight movies. Uh,
Right.
but for the most part, most comic book movies, for whatever reason, they can't seem to pull it off, which I don't understand because it just seems like you've got all these really cool characters, all these really cool stories that you can do with them, and it seems like Kevin Feige's the only one who seems to have been able to unlock it in a consistent way.
I think he's a fan. He
Yeah,
understands the storytelling of comic books.
yeah,
Um, they don't always work, but he gets like the characters he picks like the right stories for the movies. He might cram too much into these movies, but at least I understand where he's coming from in terms of the story he's picking.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. I feel like that's why the first three phases worked, because it was like a big story. It was like a comic book crossover
Yeah.
in like the '90s. Like you had all these different characters, different properties that were all connected by one villain. So I think that's why those work. Now with the multiverse stuff, it's a little harder because like, okay, what timeline are we in? Who are these
Right.
characters? Is this the real character? Are they Skrulls? There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I remember the original Infinity War or Infinity Gauntlet when it came
Yeah,
out in the
and all
early
that. Yeah.
'90s. It was just like the way that they were teasing that in like Silver Surfer comics and things like that. And
Hmm.
I mean, again, the fact that he was able to pull off that Infinity War and Endgame and make it so successful without Doctor Doom, without Silver Surfer, without the Fantastic Four, people that you expect to be in something like that, um, is just absolutely amazing. But I remember, how, like you said, like or Chris Claremont, thinking about him with the X-Men, I think he's kind of one of the ones who really originated that, where they would have different X books and they would start kind of teasing
Right.
things that, you'd start to see
Hmm.
these characters starting to appear here and there. And then the next thing you know, you had a big crossover, and of course it always came together really well. I mean, that's something again that Fox, for whatever, could not pull off with their X movies, that it was all there for them. And I know Claremont was working as a consultant. He was kind of giving them ideas for the movies, but again, they would always cheap out too, right? Like I think the first Deadpool movie, Ryan Reynolds wanted to have Wolverine in it, and they were like, "Well, we don't want to pay the $10 million to get Hugh Jackman for that." And it's like, I think that 10 million would have equated to another 100 million in sales. You know,
Well, we proved that, right, with the
right?
Deadpool Wolverine.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah.
proven.
Exactly. So, I think Feige gets it more. It seems like Bob Iger too as a CEO compared to like, Zaslav
Yeah.
and with Warner. It seems like Iger gets it more too. Again, they decided to greenlight Deadpool and Wolverine. They didn't have to do that, but they were smart and they did. And so, yeah, maybe that's the one thing is, again, I think we're just hoping that this Captain America movie is good. I think, I think it's the other problem too, is that if it's not good, it's like, well, if I say it's not good, it's like almost because I want it to do
Yeah.
well. It's like, I almost don't want to say it's bad if it ends up being bad.
That's another thing. Like you just say the movie's not good. You say, okay, I didn't like this movie. Then people are gonna ask you why. Is it
Right.
because he's black, or is it because of
Right.
this? It's like, can I just the movie not just be good? Like the story wasn't
Right.
good, the
Yeah.
acting wasn't good, the special effects weren't good. Oh no, you didn't like it because of this. Like that's another thing with fandom.
Right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah. It
oh, you
is,
want the same old shit. Oh, we want something different, but you get something different, you complain about it. Like it's
yeah.
it's
Right.
a lot. It's tiring.
No, I mean, this was the plan. Like we said, this was the plan for this. Is that
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
Kevin Feige, he knew that Robert Downey Jr. wasn't going to want to make movies forever. That Chris Evans wasn't going to want to make movies forever, and that was the plan, was to write them
It came
out.
back anyway.
And they came right, exactly right. It's like, oh, here's $200 million. Okay, all right, I got my Oscar for Oppenheimer. Yeah, I'll come back and make your Marvel movies again. Yeah, and so yeah, it's like Ryan Reynolds, right? And Deadpool Wolverine telling Hugh Jackman he'll be making those movies till he's 90.
He's
So
90. He's
exactly,
probably not wrong.
right, exactly. Well, maybe it's a good note for us to move on to our film tonight, Death by Temptation. And when we were talking about a movie to do for this, this was one that I had been meaning to see for a long time, because when I bought Troma movies on DVD, this was always a trailer on it. My friends and I really liked the trailer, and so we'd been meaning to see it. So this was finally a great opportunity for me to see it. Had you seen this before we talked about it?
Yeah, I saw it for the first time. I think Joe Bob has shown it like
Oh, that's
two,
right.
3 years ago. I had never seen it. I had never even heard of this movie. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I actually enjoyed it. I thought
Yeah.
it was very cool. It was a different take on the vampire succubus kind of story. Um, I thought the actors were like, wow, Bill Nunn's in here.
Right.
You know, so Kareem Hardison is in here. Kareem
Yeah.
Hardison. I was like, wow, Samuel Jackson's in here. I'm like,
Right.
is that Melba Moore? Is that Freddie Jackson? What's going on in this movie? Um, like,
Right.
so I'm like, okay, and I was totally in. I thought this was a film. I thought like I'm surprised it wasn't even talked about more than it was, and it was the time I was on Twitter, like tweeting about the movie, and people were like, "Oh yeah, this movie's awesome! Like you never heard of this?" I was like, "No, like I didn't know this existed till now."
Right.
Um, which is why when you suggested it, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it because it's Black History Month. You know, this is a horror film that's pretty much all black actors. Is there really even a white actor in this movie? I don't think so.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I don't think so. And
Um,
directed James Bond the third. He
right?
directs, writes
The
this.
acts,
He
the
acts.
act. Well, act with a quotation mark. So
Right,
we'll get to that.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Um,
And he was in School Days, and I think
yeah.
that's
Hmm.
might be how he got because obviously also this is shot in Brooklyn, and I think so. Samuel Jackson's originally from Washington, but I think Bill Nunn. I know James Bond the third and Kadeem Hardison. I think they're all either from New York or I know Kadeem Hardison is from Brooklyn, but I think they're all from Brooklyn as well.
Yeah, I think Bill Nunn's also from New York because he was in Do the Right Thing.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, the other thing too, right? This is made in 1990. It's what's
Mhm.
kind of funny in this is that we get a sequence at one point where it's a part of it's supposed to be taking place in North Carolina because that's where the main character, played by James Bond the third, is from. But
Yeah.
they shoot the entire thing in Brooklyn, so this might be the last time that we see something shot in Brooklyn that's passing for Carolina as opposed to the other way around, right? Shooting in
Yeah.
Carolina and passing for New York.
Yeah. That was very odd.
Right, exactly. Yes.
But
Yeah,
I
because
understand you have a low budget. You got to do what you got to do. So I respect it.
Yeah, well, because I think with the low, I mean, there are low budget movies that are still made in New York City.
Yeah.
This movie, I think the other thing too about this movie, that, like you said, it's a pretty good movie. I mean, this is the only film that James Bond the third makes, but he's a child actor, and I think he's like 24 when he makes it. IMDb says he was born in 69, but Wikipedia says he was born in 66. So
Okay.
it's still early 20s. I mean, I don't know if he relies on his DP a lot, but some of the shots in this, especially from a horror movie standpoint, they're kind of next level. They're kind of Hitchcockian in the way that they're framed and everything.
Yeah. This is a very well directed movie. It looks great. If we were talking about the special effects later, I thought they were handled very well. As you know, it's you could tell it's a low budget movie. It's just the way like the editing, the transitions is like very like cheap, but at the same time, it's like I kind of find that charming and endearing. Like and and this film has an obvious message. We'll get into that. But yeah, I think this is a very well made movie. Like I was surprised like Troma distributed
Right.
this. Like it's like very compared to the other stuff they've done, it's a very like Oscar baity
Right.
kind of movie, like very like high class. Like, oh, this is a very, very this is a very well made movie. Like the Troma by
Yeah.
Troma, like what? Like really?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the other thing too is before we get into it, it was shot at Lawrence Fishburne's house because his wife was a producer on the film. Uh,
oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah, so kind of a fun fact about this. So that's part of the reason why it looks good is that they had a nice place to shoot from. So that helped as well.
Which apartment was that? Was that Kay's apartment or the Temptress apartment?
I think it was both. I think they used. I think Kadeem Hardison. Yeah, I think Kay's apartment and the Temptress. I think that they both of those were the house. I think the bar was separate, but I think those other
Oh,
places were both. I think they just used different rooms.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
They look very different too. So that's actually well done.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I have to look into it again, but I think so. Um, yeah, so I mean, it was like you said. This is a like you said for Troma in particular.
Hmm.
Because like you said that I mean, not that the Toxic Avengers or Class of Nukem High or those aren't fun,
Right.
but this looks like if you think of like Nightmare on Elm Street movies that came out in the late '80s. It
Right.
kind of has that kind of film quality to it, I think.
Yeah, like this does not feel like a B movie at all. This feels like a
Yeah.
movie that you would put right into theaters,
Yeah.
and we'll see how it does. But
Yeah.
yeah, I actually had never heard of this until like 3 years ago, and I was like surprised that this existed, and I was like, wow, this is actually very good.
Yes, it was pretty, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll go get stuck in on it a little bit here. We'll go through some of the highlights to it. The opening of the film, right? We
Oh,
get a right? Yeah, we
yeah,
get this
go ahead.
bartender. Yeah, well, because this is an interesting element of this movie that I think a lot of modern horror movies don't do as well. It seems like a lot of more modern horror movies they want to they just kill somebody right away, but older horror movies they often would make the kill something where you're kind of sympathetic to the killer a little bit. And in this case, this guy, he's a bartender, but he's on the phone, and we kind of hear him on the phone talking, and he's essentially telling some girl that he slept with to get an abortion. He's like, you know what to do, or I'll pay for it, or whatever. And then he gets off the phone with her, gets on the phone with somebody else, and he's like talking about like hooking up with her, and like I'm gonna wear your husband's. I think was something I was wear your husband's uniform, or something like that, and you get the handcuffs and everything. It's just like,
Dude, like, there's like the first moment of this movie. I remember watching it for the first time. I was hooked. Like, okay, I gotta see what's
yes,
gonna happen because this
right,
character is such a scumbag. Like, he's
right,
calling this girl, "Oh, I can't kick you with you until you get an abortion."
right.
Like, dude, like you knocked her up, but anyway, he hangs up on this chick, calls a married woman. Oh, I guess you
Right,
can spend the weekend because your husband's not around. I want to wear your clothes. Oh,
right.
you have the handcuffs. Oh, ooh. I'm
Yeah,
gonna be like Captain Kirk and go where
that's
no
right.
man has gone before.
That's
Like,
right. I
dude,
forgot
like
about that line.
I'm like
Yes.
I'm like this guy deserves to get killed.
Right, exactly.
I'm in.
So
I'm in.
yeah, it's beautiful. So there's a beautiful woman at the end of the bar with these big, long, golden nails.
Yeah.
And we
Right.
find out this woman's actually his James Bond's cousin, James Bond the third's
Mm-hmm.
cousin. So I don't know if they're distant cousins, but they're cousins, which is gonna, when we talk about it later,
Yeah. Now I think about it.
yeah,
Oh,
a little bit
yeah.
interesting. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but she's flirting with this bartender, and she knows exactly what to tell him, and she's like, hey, why don't we go back to my place? And they do. They go back to her place, and they're hooking up, they're kind of doing their thing, and then we get kind of a little bit of a psycho scene, right, where they're in the shower,
Mm.
and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly the shower starts raining blood. It's spraying blood everywhere. So this guy completely buck naked, which I remember from the trailer. When they would show this guy completely buck naked running around the house, which again, that's another piece of this as a horror movie. One, we've got the all black cast, but two, usually in a horror movie, it's the women who get naked,
Right.
and you get killed. They're topless usually or whatever, and die. So to have the guy, be naked,
Full
and
frontal everything. Like this guy is not hiding anything.
no, exactly. No, no. Hey, I guess, when he was auditioning and they asked him, hey, what are you up for? What can you do? And they mentioned nudity, and he said, yeah, I'll do nudity. They're like, okay, well,
Yeah. Sure.
we,
Yeah.
we got a part for you. And yeah, so that's it. He's done. And then we get introduced to our main character, Joel. So we see him as a young boy, and he is at church, and his dad is played by Samuel L. Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a reverend. And the dad sees our temptress behind young Joel, in the
Yeah.
pew, kind of standing up, and he's like, "Okay, I need to get rid of this succubus." And he thinks he's got a way to do it, and that's when he's driving on the street with his wife in the front seat with the young boy behind him. Oh, I see the succubus. I'll just ram her with my car. But the mom doesn't know that it's a succubus. And she's like, don't hit this woman. You're going to hit this woman. And she grabs the wheel. There's a car accident. Both of Joel's parents die. And he is raised by his grandmother.
I'd like to know where this plan even came from. Like, let me bring my wife and my kid, and
Right.
I'm gonna ram a woman with my car. Like,
Right.
what is your mindset at this point?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, why put your family through that? Like, if you're
Yeah.
gonna kill her, just kill her.
Right.
But
Right.
so I'm just like wondering, like, was it a religious thing? Did it really happen that way? Like, there's a lot of dream sequences, fantasy sequences in this movie, so you're not
Yeah.
really sure like what's real, what's not. But yeah, that when I watched that, I go, this is very odd. Like, why would you have your family with you on a murder
Right.
spree? I don't blame the wife for doing what she did. Like, she didn't
Yeah.
know. Like,
Right.
so it's odd.
Yeah. Yeah. So now Joel is a young adult, and he's kind of figuring out what to do with his life. And his grandmother's like, no, you're destined to be a reverend like your father, to be a
Right,
preacher,
right.
and that's what you're destined to do. But the succubus also, she's in New York right now. She's in Brooklyn, but she knows that, I guess, kind of her destiny is that, Joel is the one person who can kill her. I guess we find out later kind of why that is. But
Right.
so
But
she is still
she's in his dreams a lot, kind of like luring
exactly.
him to New
Yeah.
York to kind of confront him. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, our succubus is back at it again. So she's at the bar. Before she goes to work, though, we see Bill Nunn, his character.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Dougie.
he's
Yeah.
right, Dougie. I think, is this the point where he's telling the women that he's trying to hit on that he's a race car driver? Um,
No, the first one was he's a film producer.
that's right. That's
He's
right.
doing a film project with Bruce Lee, who by this point was already dead, like 15
That's right.
years.
That's right.
So they were looking like, oh, Bruce Lee, really? Oh, okay. Like they're looking at him like, yeah, you're full of
That's
shit,
right.
bro.
That's right. That's
Even
right.
they know he's dead.
Yeah, yeah. So we will find out later why Dougie is so bad at picking up women. But he's just, that's his job, is just to go to this bar and bother women.
Yeah.
Um, but while he's doing that, this other guy shows up who is married, and he acts like he's rich, and he sees our temptress, and he starts hitting on her. And he's like, what would you like to drink, baby? And she goes, oh, I'll drink some champagne. He's like, oh yeah, we'll get some champagne. And he's like, what kind do you like? And she goes, Cristal. And he looks at the bartender. He's like, "Do you have Cristal?" And he's like shaking his head, "No." And so we know this guy is a complete goofball, right? He's cheating on his wife, but also
Right.
he's acting like he's a big player when he's got no money. He's what we used to call, right? They used to call him in the '90s, a baller on a budget. He's
Right. Right. Right.
right. So he's so eventually they settle, I think, on a bottle of Cook champagne after they go through what, Cristal, Dom Perignon,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
all different
For
ones.
the other one, she says, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
She says three of them, and he's like, nope, teach you one, and then
right.
it's the cheapest champagne.
Right, exactly.
He
And
says
then
his name is John. And she looks at it and goes, oh, you look like a Norman to me. And his name is Norman.
right, exactly. Right. He doesn't even question the fact that she knows his name's Norman. He's
Right.
just like, I'm gonna go cheat on my wife. And so,
What does it describe this guy? He's like a very nerdy guy. Like he's like very stocky, has
right.
glasses,
Yes.
balding. He's the kind of guy that you go, yeah, he's definitely married with kids.
Yeah.
Like this guy should not be. This woman's way above his league. Let's just say
Yes.
that.
Yeah, exactly. And he should know that, but he, of course,
Yeah.
doesn't. And then he gets the bill, right? And he's like pulling out cash. And at first he goes, keep the change. And he's like, no, no, actually give me the change, because it was like so expensive for the champagne. Um, yeah. So he goes back to her place with her, and they start having sex. And she starts like kind of like, scratch. She has a knife, and she starts kind of like,
Yeah, cutting him.
slashing it around.
Yeah.
And what happens, I guess, is that he thinks actually, do we, before this happened, before we find out what happens to him, I think we cut to Kadeem Hardison getting home, and he gets a phone call from Joel.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. And so when he gets home, he gets a call from Joel, and Joel, they're old friends from Carolina. Kadeem Hardison's character, Kay, he's moved to New York to
The
become an
actor.
actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he tells Joel, like, yeah, if you want to come stay with me for a little while, because he essentially says he's having kind of a crisis of faith, and he needs to get away for a little bit. And so he's just,
Mm.
kind of escaping his grandmother for a little bit. And he's going to stay with Kadeem Hardison. So Kadeem Hardison's like, sure, yeah, you can do that. Come visit me. And then the next morning, that's when this guy wakes up in bed with the succubus, and he's like trying to get his clothes on and kind of get out of there, and realizes he's got scratches all over him. And
Yeah.
he's like saying something like, "Oh, I thought we'd just be able to have sex and that would be it. That I could just do this one night and it'd be nothing. What's going on? I got a family and all this stuff." She's like, "Oh, what I gave you is good. It's going to be horrible. And so, yeah,
I'm surprised when I watched that because I'm like that's so like I don't know what to say like this is 1990. I'm sure this was from like an 88, 89.
yeah,
Um, because she's obviously implying to like HIV AIDS
yeah,
because it's just like it's like you can't come back from this like that's
right,
the virus. So it's like kind of like that's very like bold and
yeah,
progressive. Um, to show like it's not just gay people doing that. It's a woman gay that to a man during sex and intentionally murdered this man and who's married, who could also give it to his wife.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's very like dark,
yeah,
and I kind of respect the movie for that because like it's very real. I believe people actually did that to other people, like I guess revenge or whatever. Like or they didn't know they had the virus. So it's like when I watched that, I go, yeah, that's very like a very cool plot device that they use because we find out later what happens to this guy,
yeah,
which is very messed up, and I kind of understand. But it's like wow, like they really went there, and that's ballsy, you
yeah.
know.
because
And
it's almost like
and they did it in a very like, I want to say classy, because it's not classy, but like it's respectful enough where it's not meant as a joke.
right.
Like there's like a real serious threat. Like she murdered this man slowly, and he doesn't know like how long he has, because AIDS back then you couldn't really cure that or treat that as well as you could now. So it's, yeah, it's like very like you it's karma, but like you feel bad for him. Like he didn't know that was gonna happen.
Right, because you don't know if it's like because like he starts to get sores on his head and
Yeah, like
his
you
body.
start getting the lesions. Yeah,
Right. And you don't know if he's seeing them because she's making him see them, or if
right,
she when she gave him AIDS, it like progressed faster than it usually does.
right,
But
right,
yeah, because you make a great point too, because it at that time we kind of thought of it as more right, like you said, it was either gay people or bad blood transfusions or
right.
people who
Drug
did
addicts. Yeah,
drug addicts, but it
yeah.
really was an issue in the black community as well, and it
Hmm.
was kind of underreported. I mean, I think it wasn't until like maybe Easy E passed, or maybe even Magic Johnson when he, which I guess would have been what, two
Yeah,
years after this that we found out he had AIDS.
yeah. That
Um,
was like 91, 92. Yeah,
yeah, and that's when it kind of became like, oh, this isn't just a thing for gay people. That it's within the black community. It's also it's been kind of a underreported issue with kind of at that time people were more concerned about talking about the quote crack epidemic close quote that
right, right.
kind of
Yeah.
scaring everybody into voting for bad laws and those kinds of things. So that's another piece of this movie, I think, is that James Bond, even though he's in his early 20s, he was talking about something that really nobody else was talking about outside of the black community at that time. Is that for how bad AIDS was there as well.
Yeah, and I commend them for that. Like I think that's very like a very strong message. Like you have to be careful who you mess with
Yeah.
in bed. You don't know these people. Like if you
Right.
use a condom, then
Yeah.
that's the risk you take. So it's so like I think that also makes the Temptress more of a villain. Like she actually
Yes.
did that intentionally.
Yeah.
So that's like, whoa, you can't root for this character at all. Like you need her to like die at the end of the movie.
Right. Right. Because
There's no
even though
redemption at all for this woman.
yeah, because again, it's a very interesting thing because these are two people that I'm not saying you want to see them die, but they're not sympathetic characters necessarily, and then the
Hmm.
movie kind of makes them sympathetic, which I think is an interesting way to go, as opposed to
Yeah,
just being some innocent person that just like a lot of movies where it's like just a poor woman just walking on the street who gets killed, and this is different there. So
right.
yeah, it's like a depth that you don't expect from a movie like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she planned this. This was the plan. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so it's like, yeah, she's evil. This is like total demonic evil. Like, okay,
yeah,
she needs to like be vanquished at the end of this. Like, this is it. It's
yeah.
over.
Yeah,
And you feel bad for him because like yeah, he did a bad thing, but he didn't deserve that.
no, no. And of course he's got to go back to his family, and
Right.
I mean, I guess that's the other reason why maybe she made the disease progress faster so he couldn't pretend with his family. He
Right. Right.
and
Right.
could potentially infect her as well. So yeah. No, so that was a really good thing. And it kind of I say good thing. I should say good thing. Good thing in the sense of like it was more depth in the movie.
It's a
Bringing
it's a
attention to
strong
something.
message. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
strong message. Yeah, like this is not just a gay disease. It's a disease for everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody can get this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then before Joel makes it to New York, Kadeem Hardison goes to that bar where the
Mm,
succubus is. But before she does, another character is at the bar, and we get a sense that he's gay.
yeah.
We
Hmm.
don't he doesn't come right out and say, but he's he's sitting at the bar. He looks gay, at least kind of the way he's sitting and then kind of the way he's sort of presenting to another gay man
Right.
who comes up to the bar and hits on
Right.
him, and he essentially says, "I'm not gay. Get away from me." When we kind of know that he's sort of like afraid of who he is, right? He doesn't want
Well,
to.
he kind of admits it. He's like, yeah, how did you figure it out? You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
why did you pick me up? All these other people, like, how did you figure it out? Like, because the other guy's very openly gay. Like, he's very like,
right,
I know who I am. I'm proud of it. I'm hating on you because I want to get down with you. And this other guy's like very much in the closet, discreet about it,
yeah,
um, which makes him a perfect target for the temptress because she's looking at him like, okay, he's the next one.
yeah,
Um, so it's yeah, and that's another strong message also, like the gay community as well, like just people that just were very unsure of themselves. And this is 1990, so that wasn't like acceptable as much as it was now. So yeah, like again, like the storytelling here is very good.
Yeah.
You feel like it's telling so many different messages of the time. Like this is what happened here. This wasn't as treatable. AIDS, gay people weren't as accepted. They were very uncomfortable with themselves. Some weren't, and they were very like flamboyant, which maybe be a bit stereotypical. Let's be honest, but but that guy knew who he was. He accepted who he was, and this guy just stayed there miserable. Like he wants to get with this guy, but he's afraid of the consequences of getting with this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like he doesn't want to admit to himself that he's gay, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
he,
He's just like, oh yeah. How did you figure it out? But he doesn't really like say I'm gay. He just says like, how did you figure it out? Like, like get away from me. Like don't.
right.
It's too real for him. Like don't like go.
Yeah. And so that's when he goes to the succubus and starts hitting on her.
Yeah.
But even then, he's afraid to really go too far because, again, he's not comfortable with it,
Hmm.
and, she's kind of forcing herself on him a little bit, but kind of
Yeah.
not. Eventually, she gives him her address number, and he takes that. And then Kadeem Hardison shows up, and they start, hitting on each other. And I forgot too, Bill. Maybe that was when Bill Nunn was because he started again. A lot of these scenes start with Bill Nunn hitting
Yeah.
on
So
women.
this one was, I guess he was flirting with this girl who had no interest in him. He's like, he kind of dismisses her, going, I like big girls. She got welfare butt.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
and
That's
then and
right.
then and then she kind of like seduces the gay guy. He leaves, and then she notices Kay, and then he tells some girl like he's a race car driver or something like that. Like I'm
That's right.
like huh, okay,
Right.
sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And then yeah, Kay, he is sitting at the table with the succubus, and she like puts her hands on his face and
Yeah,
essentially takes him to this other place mentally where they're having sex. We
it
see
was
his like
fruit,
this
a lot of
right
fruit.
yeah, with the socks. He's like it's right. He's eating the grapes, and then we see his socks,
Oh,
his
oh,
feet
the-
shaking.
dude, that's so funny.
Yeah.
If he's just shaking back and forth, like,
Right.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I. That's one of the funniest moments of the movie. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so comical, but it's very like softcore porn.
Right.
But it's so
Exactly.
comically done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so then they separate. She gives him her number as well, or they
Right.
or no, as Kadeem Hardison says, they exchange digits.
Yeah, because she wanted his autograph or something like that. That's
That's
what it was.
right.
Like, because she knew who he was.
Yeah, she was pretending that she, that she
Yeah,
was he was an actor and
but
all
but
that
she knew,
stuff.
he was like best friends with Joel. Because that's like
Right.
okay, that's my goal.
Yeah. Yeah, because she's got to get him. So
Yeah.
when he gets back to his place, Joel is there.
Hmm.
They reconnect. They talk. He talks about meeting this woman, how Kadeem Hardison talks about meeting this woman, how great she was. But really, he's gonna kind of take Joel around the city, kind of show him around New York a little bit, that kind of
Can we talk
thing.
about the Ronald Reagan doll in his apartment?
Yes.
Like, well, why?
Right. Right.
Right above the TV too. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to look at this doll while watching
Right.
TV.
Right.
It's
Because it's he talks about the fact that like Reaganomics
comics,
is killing the
yeah.
black community.
But then you have this in your apartment.
Right,
Like,
exactly,
what's going
right,
on?
right. What it should have been, even though it's kind of like a goofy looking doll behind the TV, it would have been better maybe if it had like some darts in it or something like that to be like to
Yeah,
show,
yeah, yeah,
what was represented. Because you're right, it's kind of almost like if you went to somebody's house that had a Trump version of that, you'd be like, why do you have that? And like,
yeah.
oh,
Like,
because
what's
it
the
looks
reason?
right, right. And even if they said, oh, because it's ridiculous, and I think it's like, but it doesn't look that ridiculous, right? It's like it's a little bit of the DC follies, but not quite. So
Right, right.
yeah, yeah, it's an
It's
interesting thing.
strange.
Yeah,
I can know the reason why that was there.
yeah,
Um,
right, exactly. Well,
Especially
because
if this is taking place in what 89, 90. So by that point, he's not really the president anymore anyway. So it's like I don't know. It's
yeah, well,
weird.
because I guess because it comes into play later, maybe, and kind of, which yeah, we
Oh
can
yeah,
get it.
yeah, we'll get to when the
Yeah.
TV moment. Yeah.
Yes, right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So now, I think before we go back to the bar, I think this is where the gay guy from the previous scene, he goes um to the temptress's house, and he's trying to hook up with her, and she's kind of like not making it easy on him to hook up with her. So I think she's kind of almost,
Yeah.
um, and so we get a sequence that is, I don't know if it's rough to watch, but it's definitely like where she's kind of doing him from behind, right?
Well, first of all, she's riding him, right?
That's right.
And I guess
Yeah,
he's not erect or hard or
that's
anything like that.
right. That's right.
So she's kind of frustrated, like, what the fuck are you here?
That's
And then she
right.
decides to turn him around and then pegs him pretty much.
Hmm.
And he's like, stop it. She's pretty much raping him at this
Right.
point.
Yeah. And then, what after she's done raping him, we kind of cut away because she's got this four-post bed with like, curtains around it, like kind of sheer
Yeah.
curtains, and they pull away, and so you see the shadow of her killing him.
Hmm.
I think it's one of those things where if this movie didn't have a lot of budget for kills and things like that, they did a good job of mitigating the budget by using sequences like that.
And I also feel like there's another message in that kill as well. Like, if you just accepted who you were,
Yeah.
you still be alive. In that
Yeah.
kind of way. Like, what I say? Like, he's trying to be straight, but he's not really straight. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different layers in this movie. Like, I feel like, it's definitely a film of its time, but at the same time, it's trying to like it's very progressive
Yeah.
in what it's trying to say. And I really appreciate that about this movie. Like, I can see why Troma kind of appealed and found it disappealing, because Trump is very much like that, very much open minded about things like that. So I was very like impressed. Like, okay, this is why he's dead, because he
Yeah.
was being someone else.
Yeah.
Just like just like the guy
Yeah.
before him, like the Norman guy, like he was trying to be someone else and he wasn't. So it's like punishment. Like, you're a sinner. I'm gonna punish you.
Yeah. Right. And also too, right, it's usually the other way around in horror movies. The gay guy
Right,
is killed for being gay in the horror movie.
right,
Or like lesbian women, you see them also, getting, it's like how many movies
right,
where it's like a lesbian woman like flirts with another woman, and then she, it's like, oh, the lesbian bad guy,
right.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
He
this
was
is the
killed.
opposite.
He was killed for being straight.
Yeah,
So
or
it's
he was
like,
killed for not accepting who he was, right? And
was
so
right.
had he just accepted who he was, and which, it's an easy thing to say, right? To say you should just accept who you
Yeah,
are, but
yeah,
in a way, right? If he goes with that guy, then he never sees the succubus, he never
right.
meets her or any of those kinds of things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really, like you said, it's a really interesting message that they put in there. Uh, but yeah, so that's, that guy's dead, and then the next day everybody's at the bar, and that's when the succubus sees Joel, and she starts to sink her
Well,
teeth into him.
even before that, we have Bill Nunn again,
That's right, the Bill
and
Nunn scene.
he's talking to this model who he says he saw in Penthouse,
Right,
and she's like,
exactly.
"No, I was in Vogue actually,"
Right.
and he's like telling her like, my first name basis is pussy,"
Right.
and she's like, "Well, I bet you take Fistana and Paulette pretty steady, don't you?" So then she's like, they arguing, and then Freddie Jackson appears
Yeah.
and picks her up, and they leave together. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like, and she knows. I'm like, oh, please take me home with you, Freddie. Like, oh, I'm ready.
Yeah.
What is going on? Like, like
Yeah.
it's just random, but it's great because the exchange between those two characters was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
That's something you could actually see in a bar. Like, it's so real.
exactly. Yeah, because I mean, from a music standpoint, like you said, Freddie Jackson, when you look at the IMDb credit, it shows that he plays himself, and that's the
Yeah,
scene, which is
that's the scene.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, we get a Freddie Jackson song. I don't know if that's the point where we get it, or if maybe it's later.
I
Um,
think it's later, or even before. I
yeah,
think maybe it might be a bit before that actually. During one of
that's
the
right.
sex scenes. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, because another one of the sex scenes, I think the first sex scene is an Ashford and Simpson song, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
just crazy. I mean, you're talking about,
The soundtrack is banging in this movie, by the way.
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, how do you get, Ashford? I mean, I guess late '80s, early '90s, they weren't writing like they were in the '60s and '70s when they're,
Yeah.
I mean, ain't no mountain high enough. They wrote that, that's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And then Najee also plays the saxophone. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
that scene or
That was
another
the case.
scene.
That was the case scene with
Yes.
the fruit.
That's
Yes.
right. That's right. He was playing the sax for that. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
beyond the actors, he's also getting this musical talent as well, James Bond the third, which just, yeah, it's absolutely insane. And so yeah, so it's like almost like that should be the scene, right? Is that Freddie Jackson shows up and takes the girl away from Bill Nunn? That should be it. But no, Kadeem Hardison and Joel show up, and
Yeah.
the succubus starts flirting with her and takes her to another part of the bar. And that's when Bill Nunn tells Kadeem Hardison, "Hey, there's something up with that woman. I don't hit on her because she's she's not right."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Kadeem Hardison, she pretends she doesn't recognize him when
Hmm.
Joel introduces her. She pretends that she's never met him before, which is kind of weird for him because it's like, well, what did we do last night? And so yeah, so is it that night when Joel comes back to the apartment and Kadeem Hardison's like, if you're gonna see her, I'm gonna kick you out or something like that? Like, or is that the later? Is that after they spend the day together?
I think it's later than that. Yeah, that's when he finds out about her
That's
being who
right.
she is.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. So okay, so we go through that night.
He's jealous though. Like he's like, why does she ignore me? And
Right,
he's picking on this, and
exactly.
she's with this nerdy, like very insecure Southern boy who wants to be a
Right,
minister, who's never had sex, who's
right.
never kissed a girl.
That's right.
So it's like he's like looking at him like what's the deal? Like that's when Bill Nunn tells him like kind of like warning him like yeah she's not who she seems to be.
Yeah,
Like this
yeah.
is something's wrong with this woman here.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get one of those classic reveal scenes when she shows up the next day to pick up Joel to take him out for a date during the day. And Kadeem Hardison has a big mirror in his apartment because, of course, he wants to be able
Oh
to check
yeah,
himself out, right? See how he's looking. So, what happens is that the succubus, Joel goes to get, I think he goes to get his coat or something in the other room. And so the succubus is talking to Kadeem Hardison. Kadeem Hardison's he's kind of aggressive and talking to her, saying like, "Hey, you know who I am. Don't act like you don't know me. You know me." And she's like, "Yeah, I know you, Kay, or whatever, but I'm so I can't remember exactly what she says. But he kind of is like turning away from her and looking in the mirror and realizing she's not behind him in the mirror,
yeah.
and that's when it kind of dawns on him that something's not right here. And so after they leave,
But well, even before that, we have a sequence with the grandmother having a dream
that's
about
right. Oh,
her,
that's right. Yes, the
and then
grandmother. Right.
and she's looking at a photo, like a young photo of Joel, and he sees like the eyes are bleeding, and like
Right.
the eyes are like black and hollow.
Right.
So she's kind of messing with him, and she's kind of worried about him being in New York, like she knows something's wrong.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, then the whole non-reflection thing where he kind of starts figuring out like, oh, if she's a vampire or something's going
Yeah.
on. I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then go back to the bar, obviously, and
Well, because
he's still picking up women.
right, right. Bill Nunn is still trying to pick up women. Right.
He said he works for Cameo. Word
Right.
up,
That's right. That's right.
which is like a very dated reference even by this point.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. He's like I'm the new lead singer of Cameo. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is just yeah. It's like always a good one. And then it's when Kadeem Hardison tells him about the
yeah,
reflection thing. And
yeah.
at first, Bill Nunn makes fun of him about it, and he gets pissed. And finally, Bill Nunn realizes like, okay, he's serious about this. I ought to take him aside and let him know a few things. And that's when Bill Nunn lays his cards on the table, and we find out that he's essentially X Files before X Files. It's
Yeah,
like
he's one of the Winchester brothers
right,
before Supernatural. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And he says like, yeah,
This
I've
this
been
this 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 one's been popping up for like years, like decades. Like this woman
right,
has not died.
yeah,
Killed a
right,
whole bunch of men in the same bar. Every time she takes a guy out of the bar, he never comes back.
yeah, yeah,
So something's going on.
yeah. And that's
And he's
also
he's the first official lead he's had. Is the
yes,
case.
yeah. And doesn't he also explain that the only way to kill the succubus is through someone who's pure?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that's why the
Cause they
succubus
go
wants to kill Joel.
and they go see the I guess the clairvoyant woman.
Yeah,
It's a great Madam Sonia, who played by
yeah,
Melba Moore,
yes,
like another singer.
yes,
This is more of a role. She actually has an acting role in this. Like not like
yeah.
Freddie Jackson just came in and just left.
Right, right. Or Neji, who just played the sax. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
which is this is a very cool scene. So
yeah, yeah. Well, because we get this juxtaposition where they're talking to this psychic to find out what's going
hmm
on with the succubus, while the
right.
succubus is at this like dessert restaurant with Joel having dessert,
Joel, yeah.
and she's trying to tempt him to drink alcohol. She's trying to tempt him. She kisses him, which again they're cousins. So even the stage
Mm,
kiss, it's not really it's not exactly a stage kiss, but yeah, she's like trying to use his own faith to get him to drink. she's like, oh,
Yeah.
people in the Bible drink, there's all this, and it's like, well, but he doesn't want to drink, he's not, but she's trying to get him to, partly because I think she puts stuff in people's drinks, as a way
Yeah.
to get them.
Yeah.
So, but he's refusing to drink. Okay, I guess the other piece of it, right, is if he drinks, it leads to the temptation. That's
Right.
it's like
Because
the
she's trying to corrupt him completely.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then while that's happening, the psychic woman is telling, Melba Moore is telling them about who the succubus is, what her deal is,
Hmm.
and what does she do something to? I can't remember what she does to like. It kind of gives she does something to get inside the succubus brain or something like that. I can't remember. Um,
Well, I think they're just talking about her. Like she's telling like,
right,
she's there to go after Joel. She's to destroy souls. She needs sex to survive. She's like she's just a seductress. She's using
right,
her powers to seduce men. And I think the temptress kind of just sits there and kind of like senses people talking about her.
that's right.
It's like because I guess like, the three of them are powerful against her. So she's like, okay, I go to the bathroom, not feeling that great. She goes to the bathroom, looks in the mirror, and pretty much like gets angry and uses her power through the mirror to kind of possess the psychic.
Yeah,
And she knows who's going after her. She's like warning them, like, you better stop this, leave me alone, you know. And they get scared, like, this that was real. Like they know, like they're now targets of this woman. Like they know what's going on.
yeah,
Um, but they also find out like Joe's pretty much like the last hope they have of defeating her because he's so pure. That that's why she's after him because if once she gets rid of him, she can survive forever.
yeah, yeah. And now one of the plans is if they Bill Nunn knows that one of her weaknesses is holy water, so they
Right.
think they can take her out without Joel. They think they've got an idea, and that is they go to the bar and they well first like Kadeem Hardison
Well,
Kay he attacks the bartender.
even before all this, we have the grandma again,
That's
who
right.
has the dream with Joel running in the street, and then we see her like she sees him in the bar with all the victims of the succubus,
That's right. Oh, that was the
telling
grandmother
him,
seeing that. I was thinking
yeah,
Joel saw
yeah,
that. Okay, that was
no,
her
that was
seeing
the
that. Yeah.
grandmother. Yeah, like, telling Joel like, come with us, like you're part of
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And then after this, like, then I think around this time, that's when they start figuring out the plan, and Kay calls the grandmother about what's going on.
Yeah. That's right.
And I guess the grandma, I guess the grandma was kind of upset with Kay for moving out of North Carolina
Yeah.
and going to like a corrupt city like New York. But I guess she was so worried about Joel that she believed Kay,
Yeah.
and that comes out eventually. Like what happens after that because she's part of the
That's
big finale.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So that's right. So Joel or so it's the grandmother for some reason I thought it was Joel that had that dream
No,
about the
it was the
bar.
grandmother. Yeah, it's the grandmother.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the bartender throws up in the glass to give Joel
yeah,
a drink. That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
all kinds of stuff like that. We see Norman, right? Norman's
Mm-hmm.
his AIDS
Oh
lesions
yeah,
are
and he tells him that the wife killed him because of
that's
that.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
and we
That's
find
right.
out,
Yeah.
which is like sad.
Yeah.
But
That's right. That's right. So yeah. So now we get back to the kind of to the president and I think also too right did okay, so they're back at the bar, and they
hmm
know the succubus is going to be back there to try to seduce somebody.
right.
So that they hang out at the trash thing, and that's when Kadeem Hardison attacks the bartender. Not
Yep.
the one that was killed earlier in the film, but the guy who replaces
Replaces him.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he attacks him for some reason. The poor guy's like, "Oh, I don't know, what do you want me to do?" And they're like, "Sneak this holy water into her drink." Um, and so he goes in with this vial of holy water to sneak it into her drink. And of course, like, I don't know how she doesn't see that he's doing that, because she's watching him the whole time. There's nobody else in the bar. And he's like fishing something out of his pants and like, kind of sneaking it in there. But while he's putting the holy water in her drink, we get the one of the best lines in the movie. The one that like when my friends and I saw the trailer, we that was our favorite part. Bill Nunn says to Kadeem Hardison, "Ooh, when she drinks that holy water, she's going to be slobbering and
Oh.
farting and gagging."
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, and it sure enough, she's
Speaking of the her not noticing, like I've always found that weird
yeah,
because she's like looking right at him.
right,
So I'm
exactly.
wondering if she knows and does it anyway, like kind of like I don't know,
Oh,
because the character that the bartender character comes back later. So I'm wondering that was part of her plan.
that could
I
be.
I don't know because it was so obvious like she's looking at him like she had to know there was something in the drink, and she
Yeah.
looks at the drink kind of weird, like, okay, should I drink this or not? And it's like, the way it's shot is like it tells me like maybe she did know, and this was part of the plan because it doesn't
Yeah.
totally destroy her. So maybe she knew, okay, this will hurt me, but this won't kill me.
Yeah, there's not enough in it, or maybe the
Right,
alcohol counteracts it some because
right.
she convulses, and then Bill Nunn and Kadeem Hardison they run in. Kadeem Hardison's trying to hold her down while she's convulsing, and then Bill Nunn's got this knife, and he goes to try to
Hmm.
stab her with it, and then suddenly, like her power is
Stopping
turning,
him, yeah.
yeah, stopping, turning the knife back on him, and he's able to kind of get away. I can't remember if like they hit her or something. I can't remember. Um, if Kadeem Hardison hits her with something or something like that, and they escape.
No, I don't think so. I think she like throws him against the
That's
wall,
right. She throws him against the wall. That's
and they
right.
just
Yeah.
run, and they just run out like, okay, we can't do anything with this woman. And she
Yeah.
pretty much like says, "I'm gonna kill you both. Like,
Right.
this is it.
Exactly. So
You
they
guys are
split.
done."
Yeah, and then they split up, which is never a good idea. And poor
Right,
Bill Nunn,
right.
he gets into a car with somebody thinking he can escape with that person, and no. So he meets his end.
So the bartender guy is in the front.
Yeah.
He's already possessed by her. I don't know how that happened. He's turned
Right.
into a demon himself. And
That's
there's
right.
another demon with like a bony face,
Yeah.
and they pretty much end Bill Nunn. That's it. He's done.
He's
He's out of,
done.
well, he's not out of the film, but he's taken out for now.
You're right, exactly. Yeah. So now it's just down to Kadeem Hardison and Joel, and then maybe the grandmother. We don't know. So when they get back to the house, they're they're there, and I can't remember if at this point,
Kadeem goes to his apartment.
yeah,
And this is where the TV stuff happens.
yeah, yeah. So
So he's looking for a weapon to fight her, and then he hears like this a voice talking to him, like calling his name, K,
yeah,
K, K. He goes into the living room with I think is it a knife? So I don't remember what he was carrying.
yeah,
But the TV he sees himself as the actor alter ego he plays in his movies, like seducing, like come to the TV, and it's very like Videodrome,
yes,
with the lips and the way that the TV sucks the person inside the TV.
yeah,
The he gets closer, and then you see the Ronald Reagan doll kind of go crazy,
right,
laughing at
right,
him.
yes,
And he gets
yes,
sucked into the TV. He gets stuck inside, and then and we see him trying to come out of the TV, like the original Nightmare on Elm Street with the Freddy Krueger through the wall, kind of the face
yes,
kind of coming out of the wall, that kind of effect, which is really cool. And then the TV vomits like viscera and blood and all his guts and everything, and he's pretty much dead at that point. I guess so it's over.
yeah.
So
So he's done. Now
right,
the
he's done.
succubus,
Yeah,
yeah, he's out of the picture. So now the succubus is coming for Joel,
right.
and she goes to kind of get him, and I don't know if this is the point where she grabs him by the wrist and it snaps his wrist and actually cuts it.
So before this, she's like trying to get him to drink the wine again.
That's right. That's
He's
right.
refusing. He's refusing her. So then she decides, okay, I'm just gonna. I guess she has drugs in her nails. So
Yes.
she put like
Yeah.
her nail inside the cup, gives it to him. He drinks it, and then he kind of passes out. She's like laughing and laughing, and then he has the dream again, but with his dad,
That's right. That's
calling
right.
him a sinner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like freaking out, like, okay, I know you're not alive, you're dead. Realizing that like this is a dream, and then I guess the grandmother comes into the apartment or her home and pretty much distracts her from killing Joel. And so when he's trying to fight her to get away from the grandma, he breaks his hand.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's got the grandma. She's got the grandmother by the
right.
throat.
She's trying to kill her. Yeah, she's already like all like pretty much a full demon at this point. Like the makeup and everything, like the teeth, the eyes, the nose, like she's all demonic at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. So it's all bad. And so this is the point where Joel realizes his destiny, and he sees the Bible kind of flapping around on the floor,
Hmm.
and he sees the cross, and he picks up the cross, and he essentially says, "I rebuke you," which I remember
Right.
an old Jerry Springer episode where they had the Reverend Schnorr, and there's a woman there who's like rebuking people. Like, I think there was a gay marriage, and she was rebuking her son's gay
Oh,
marriage. Yeah, and Reverend Schnorr's like, "Hey, you can't rebuke me. I'm the Reverend," because she was like, "I rebuke you," or whatever. So when he was saying, "I rebuke you" to the demon, it reminded me of that episode. Yeah, but essentially, this is what causes her to go. I'm trying to remember exactly what happens to her, like how she is vanquished in this sequence, because I
well, he's using his faith against her, obviously, and then she's kind of like convulsing, and it's like
that's right.
the special effects is like a negative lens,
That's right. That's right.
and it's like a sepia color over it, and then it's like she's like convulsing and screaming, and she pretty much explodes.
That's
So
right.
she's just. My question is, how did the grandma get there so fast?
Right. Right. Considering how long it took Joel to get there. Did
Because
she?
he called, wasn't it the same night that he called the grandma about the.
I thought so. Yeah. So she would have had
And I
to
was like,
fly
wait a minute,
there.
right from North Carolina to New York, that's not a short flight.
No, no, she would have to fly there. I know the Boston radio station I listen to in Boston, there's a guy who would be on that show, but he lived in Carolina on the radio station, and he would drive like 11 hours.
Yeah, so I was
So
like, wait a minute, how did she get here so fast? Like, what?
yeah, so it's a good long trip. So and back then I think it would be even longer because I don't think the highways and roads were quite great. And of course, yeah, also too
How did you know
I,
where she lived too? Like,
right, exactly. There's no GPS in 1990, so
right, yeah,
you can't just look at an address and be like, that's how I get, because you how would you know you're getting to the right place even?
yeah, yeah. So it's a very convenient finale, but
Yeah,
the effects are cool,
yeah,
and obviously, she deserves to die. So
exactly,
I don't
exactly.
feel bad for her dying and exploding. So
But then the question is she really dead? Because we get the Butner
right,
at the end, right?
right,
Where we've got Kadeem Hardison as like kind of a demonic chauffeur.
right.
Bill Nunn is there, and we realize that nope, even though he vanquished her, she's immortal. She's always going to be
Yeah,
there.
because at the beginning, when she talked to the first bartender in the beginning, she tells him, I guess he's like a liar to light her cigarette.
Yeah,
And she's like, yeah, you need to use a cigarette lighter because the flame lasts longer.
yeah,
And he says that to the woman that he's talking to. So you go, okay,
yeah,
he's repeating the exact same line that she did. So you
yeah.
kind of know, like, okay, he's the new
He's
temptress or
yeah,
tempter, I guess, at this point.
right,
So
right.
then I guess Joe goes back to North Carolina. I don't know if he becomes a minister or not, but it ends very strangely because he's still running in the street. So I
Right.
don't know. So I don't know if they're still going to go after him as far as implying.
Yeah,
So I don't know. It's a
yeah.
very I guess that's it's very open ended. Like I guess that's he's still the goal to get to get
Yeah, he's still the one that can defeat them. And
right.
you
Yeah,
know, and I don't know if the plan was to make sequels for this. This is the only movie that James Bond III makes. He doesn't
right.
make anything else after this, and so which is an interesting thing because usually when somebody makes just the one movie, it's not that good. This is pretty good. You'd think that somebody would have watched this and said, "I'll let you make another movie." So I think he made the decision to not make any more movies.
Because I don't think the film did that well, right? I don't think it was like a big hit
Well,
at the time.
it did well enough. I think probably my hunch is it probably didn't do too well outside of the New York area. Um,
I see.
it
Okay.
it said it made it had it grossed about 2 million
Okay.
worldwide, and in 1990 I can't imagine it had a budget of you know a million or anything like that. It probably wasn't quite.
Well,
I mean,
okay. So on Wikipedia it says $5 million budget actually.
oh, it did have that high of a budget. Okay, because I was wondering if maybe some of the people like Nunn and Samuel L. Jackson either didn't get paid or didn't take a high salary to be in the film. Like, um, if like maybe they were doing James Bond the third as a solid, but yeah, if it had a budget of 5 million, that could be an issue. That maybe what's his name? But like though, 1990 that there was a robust enough video market that you think a movie like this would have been in video stores. But I wonder too if that's another issue where race plays a part.
Yeah.
Because now of course you think of like Jordan Peele directing horror films, and
Mhm.
it's not it's kind of understood that horror is a very diverse genre. um, Whereas I think back then in the 90s in terms of like what would sell in the videos and sort of stuff like that, it seems like it was a very it's very white because obviously you think of like the horror movies, right? There's sort of that trope, right? That the one African American male gets killed,
Right, right.
and this movie, of course, is trying to kind of do away with those kinds of tropes, and so you know, but on the other hand, I mean, yeah, I mean, I wonder if maybe this was part of um, uh, Lloyd Kaufman's portfolio that he's selling to video stores at the time. And people were like, yeah, Toxic Avenger, I'll take that. I'll take Sergeant Kabuki Man. I don't know if I'll take Death by Temptation. Because I was trying to remember if this was in video stores, the way that those
So,
movies were.
Wikipedia just says this film was filmed in 4 weeks with a $5 million budget. But unlike other films from Troma, this employed Screen Acting Guild actors, so that's probably why it cost that much.
Oh, right. Okay.
And for 4 weeks in New York, that's a lot. Like that permit, so probably like not cheap.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why they filmed at
so
Lawrence Fishburne's house, because his wife was one of the
right.
producers. They probably could save money there.
And they said Troma was aimed to release the film during Black History Month in February 1990 to coincide with the release of the soundtrack. However, the film premiered on April 27th, 1990 at the American Film Institute Los Angeles International Film Festival before opening in theaters that May. So May, like this horror film, is not gonna do that
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much I think the release date pretty much screwed it up.
Yeah, that's one of those things that happens sometimes with those, right? That you're looking for something at a certain time of year, and yeah, they
Could
maybe should.
you guys think 1990 was with Dick Tracy? That was the big summer
Right,
movie,
yeah,
and then Ninja Turtles was like 2 months before that. So it
right.
was like,
Might have been
yeah,
better to wait till
that's
October, right? Maybe
yeah,
they
yeah,
if you're gonna miss that window on Black History Month, why not just wait until October for it? Maybe.
yeah. That's bad timing, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So that didn't help it at all. I mean, the thing I remember too is that when I had when Troma first started putting their movies out in DVD in the early 2000s, I remember they had a sale where they were selling them for like $5 a piece, which was a huge deal at that time, right? You didn't really get $5 DVDs back then. And so I picked up, I think it was Toxic Avenger, Sergeant Kabuki Man. I think it's Surf Nazis Must Die and Class of Nukem High. I think it was that forfer. And I don't know if this was on that there was a trailer for this on all of them, but it was definitely on some of them. And
Oh,
it was
okay.
one of those ones where my friends and I watched it, and I think I had intended to buy it then, and just never got around to it.
Also, you could figure like this is a very tame film for Trauma too. Like it's not
Yeah,
very like out there, so maybe that's also plays a part of it. Like it's more grounded in terms of
yeah,
what it's trying to say. So I mean, I feel like maybe it was ahead of its time.
yeah,
Like so because you think Candyman was what 2 years later after that, and that was
yeah.
a pretty
So
big hit. So um, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where you go, was it the release? It was only released in 11 theaters, so it's like that's
yeah,
not a lot.
yeah.
So
Yeah, I didn't realize it premiered in LA because I was thinking like it was probably going to make its money in New York. Because again, a lot of this cast is from New York. It was shot in New York.
right.
That they would have been playing it a lot there. But yeah, it's one of those ones. I think it's really cool that Joe Bob showcased it. It's on all of the streamers right now. I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got it. I think AMC Plus
Yeah.
has it. Tubi's got it. I think Freevee, pretty much anywhere has it available. It's fully uncut, so it's fully
Yeah.
the full versions. So nothing's edited out there. The swearing, the blood, all of it's there. So I mean, the full frontal, guy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
there.
I watched it on Peacock and it was all there. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it is, and I think for people looking for horror movies, it's interesting because right now people are looking kind of for more of these like elevated kind of things, and this
yeah.
is elevated in a different way. It's
Mm-hmm.
not your traditional slasher. It's not your traditional vampire. It's got, like you said, it's got messages in it that are there, but it is also kind of more of a fun, low budget horror movie. This is not like a 3 hour. This isn't Robert Eggers having everybody talking like some they were written by a Bram Stoker book or something like that. This is modern dialogue, modern conversation. You might have trouble understanding some of the words that Kadeem Hardison said if you're younger and don't know all the slang from that period of
Swag.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he does use some slang terms that are kind of more unique to that time period. But for the most part, yeah, this is a fun time, and it's like not even 90 minutes long, and I think it's definitely worth people checking out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like James Bond the third. I feel like not the greatest actor. Let's be honest. He's kind of very. I don't know if he's the worst actor. Let's be honest, but his direction is very good. He wrote the movie. I think his script is very smart in a lot of ways. Um, Definitely shows a lot of love in what he's trying to do. So I kind of wish he did more films. I kind of want to see what else he could have done. But yeah, like you said, the acting is good. I think the story is good. The effects not the greatest, but they're decent enough that they carry with the movie. And I think it's very well made. The soundtrack is really good. Um, yeah, I'm surprised it didn't do better. This could have done better. I'm glad it's finding an audience now. I feel like this is a film that deserves to be watched. If people go, oh, what movie should I check out? So I would definitely recommend this. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
check this out once. Um, like you say, you might not know all the slang, all the references, but you're still gonna understand like the succubus, and you're gonna understand, the message about the AIDS and the gay guy and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean, check it out. Like it's, I'm glad I finally got to talk about it with somebody because I always wanted to review this. But I was like, yeah, I feel like it's like a podcast because there's a lot of things to talk about in terms of the story here. Because there's a lot of layers in this story, um, like religion, politics, society. The '90s were a very different time, but also very similar to what we're going through now. So it's almost like a time capsule, but at the same time, almost like a reflection of 2025 in a lot of ways. I think a lot
Right.
of people still struggle with a lot of these things. Um, and to have a movie that kind of uses that as its message is, I think, very progressive and very smart, and it makes it kind of almost timeless in a way too. So
Yeah, no, that's a great point because I think, people think of the 90s as like Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton playing the sax, all of that kind of thing, which
yeah, yeah,
eventually we get there. But this is before Bill Clinton played the sax on Arsenio. This is actually, I think this is, 1990. That would be like, when the Gulf War happened and everybody thought Bush was a shoe-in
hmm
for a second term. And then the economy tanked. He tries a couple things to kind of beat Clinton. He first complains about, he and Dan Quayle complained about Murphy Brown having a baby, being
right,
artificially
right, right,
inseminated. That didn't
yeah,
work. So then they go after Ice-T for Cop Killer. Um,
hmm
I think that would have worked better if Ice-T hadn't pulled the song from the record, but he was just kind of like, okay, I'm not going to let you use this as a political football anymore. I'm going to, which I think was smart for his career as well for Ice-T, because he didn't get canceled the way that, nowadays, people get canceled. But that was another one that the Bush administration was trying to use crack, right? The crack habit. Remember there's the whole
right,
thing where he
right,
he he supposedly that somebody bought crack out in front of the
yeah,
White House, and of course it
right,
was a
right,
whole it was a whole made up thing. It was all fugazi. So we're still in that window, and I think that also, I think it's part of the reason why Reagan is still there, because Bush was like an extension of Reagan. He was seen as
mm,
like, four
that's
more
true.
years of Reagan. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's like you said, it's like the 90s, like we think of them as like the Bill Clinton time, the Bill Clinton playing the sax time, but we weren't quite there yet in 1990, and this is an interesting reflection on that as well.
yeah. This is still very much an '80s movie, like late '80s, like it's stuff
Yeah,
that they're dealing with,
yeah,
drugs and um, the way that maybe there's a lot of misogynist men in the movie.
yeah.
Like a lot of women probably be offended now, like watching going like who are these guys talking with the growth of the abortion and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And that's the married guy and the queer element of it. Like, oh, that's really like messed up. So I feel like people still get something out of this movie today. Maybe it'd be a lot different than what people got out of it in 1990, but I feel like there's still something to say by watching this. Like I said, I feel like this is still very relevant. Um, do I think a film like this can get away now? I don't know, but I feel like yeah, just watch it. It's very well made, very smart, um, and I'm glad. Like you say, it's on everything. Like you can't escape this movie.
Yeah.
If you search for it, you're gonna find it on 20 different services.
Right.
So there's no excuse not to watch this. Like
No. No. And I mean, it's fun. You've got a lot of named
Yeah,
actors. You're going to recognize a lot of people in this.
yeah.
It's fun in the way that the characters are, whether it's Bill
Hmm.
Nunn's character, whether it's that bartender at the beginning who kind of gets it, but who's kind of, it's like he's a slime ball, but it's also kind of funny the way he's on the phone, just kind of riffing almost. Like, I
Hmm.
wonder how much of that was even scripted, and how much he was just like
Right.
on the phone, just riffing like that. So you get there's a lot of fun, and like you said, it's kind of like a fun late 80s kind of fun, but then there's also these more serious things that are in the film as well, and those messages and those layers to it. So yeah, it's a really great, like really well done. I think for people, whether it's horror fans and you haven't seen this before, this is a horror movie that's worth checking out. I think it's one that you should definitely have in your portfolio of watched movies. If you're a horror fan, you should definitely check this out. But I think non-horror fans, if you're looking for a movie that you can have a fun time with, I think there's enough in here for non-horror fans as well, with the name actors, the jokes, the commentary, and all of that. I think
Hmm.
helps as well.
Plus, if you just want to watch something with blood, gore, and sex, this is your movie. Like, there's a lot of sexes in here. They're not very
Right.
vivid, but they're there. There's a lot of guts, a lot of gore, a lot of blood. Um, yeah, it's very well made. I can't say better things about it. I think it's a very good movie,
Yeah.
um, and I think people should check it out. I'm glad, like you said, Joe Bob. I'm glad he kind of introduced it to me because I didn't never knew about this movie until then. I was like, okay, let me check it out, and I enjoyed it, and I'm glad I got to see it. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to talk about it too. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to as well. I was glad we were talking about what we are going to discuss for this month, and this one came up as as a possibility. I think
yeah,
it definitely is worth it. I think everybody should definitely check it out.
especially if you're looking for like a very black centric horror film. I think everybody thinks Candyman,
Yeah.
or Get Out, or like The Blackening is a recent one. I feel like this is like one of the first ones that really kind of introduced that kind of thing where, like, honestly, like thinking like Blackula or Blackenstein, stuff like that. But this is like a very serious type of horror movie that has fun elements in it, but it's trying to say something to the audience. And I hope people check it out and get something out of it.
Yeah, no, you make a good point too, because this predates Vampire in Brooklyn, but
Yeah,
actually,
that too is another one. Right. Yeah.
yeah, it was released in Sweden after Vampire in Brooklyn, so they
Hmm.
renamed it Vampire in Brooklyn 2 in Sweden. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah, so but that's another piece of it. Is I don't know if Eddie Murphy would have been, inspired by this. I know he's inspired by Blackula as well, but I wondered
Mhm.
too if he saw this come out at the time because he was looking to try to do things outside of Beverly Hills Cop, and those kinds of things. He wanted to do something different. That's why he did Vampire in Brooklyn. But I do wonder if part of him was inspired because he would have had to have known this movie came out with all the names that were in it.
Yeah, I'm sure
He
he
probably
did.
watched it
Yeah.
on VHS or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, yeah. As we're wrapping up here, Freddie, anything that you wanted to plug?
Nothing going on at the moment. I have a podcast that's hopefully coming out later this year. I can't talk about it yet because I don't want to jinx it. But I'll talk about. I'm sure I'll be back on the show again, so I'll talk about it then. But yeah, like I'm just on Blue Sky, Fred the Wolf, fullmoviereviews.net still running. That's pretty much it, really. I got nothing going on besides jury duty, unfortunately. Um,
Right. Yeah. So hopefully that
that's the
won't be
story.
too
That's
bad.
we were talking about that off air. This is a story for another time. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But no, but people should find you on Blue Sky. I think follow you on Blue Sky so you keep updated on what you've got going on there, and also you either post kind of fun
Oh,
memes about films or
yeah.
kind of challenges, name 20 movies, those kinds of things that I think are always fun to kind of see. They kind of they're conversation starters about movies that I think are always cool. It was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that movie or I forgot about that song.
Also, you can follow me on Letterboxd, Fred the Wolf.
Yeah,
That's probably where I do my most reviews on right at the
yeah,
moment. So,
that's
and
right.
I'm
Yeah,
very frequent on there.
yeah, and sometimes you'll post those on Blue Sky as well. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I really check those out. Well, thank you again, Freddie, for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was, and I appreciate that you picked this movie because I wanted to talk about it for a long time.
Yeah, no, I was glad you wanted to see it too because I've been meaning to watch it forever. So it was great to finally watch it, and I was glad it lived up to it. It's actually better than
Yeah,
I even thought it
yeah,
was going to be. It was a
yeah.
lot of
It's very
fun.
good. It's very good. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone. Dun.